All right. We apologize for the miscommunication. I have two different Zoom numbers on different versions of the agenda. This is the one that was on the website, and it seems to be the one that you all found, so that's good. And we are going to restart the meeting in just a moment, and we'll go from there. All right.
Do we have to do anything as you restart the meeting?
Nah, you just need to stay put, and we will get started in just a moment. Again, I do apologize for that confusion. Okay, so. All right, now I see your chat. If you could mute yourself, that would be helpful. I can do that from here as well, but it's easiest if people could do that. And then I would suggest that we restart the meeting from the beginning.
Let's,
I apologize to everyone. Yeah.
and we already did the pledge. We can go from the beginning, Ken, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
First up is the Vassar College Institute, and Ken went through a short presentation on the improvements, so we'll have him do that
Try and keep
again.
it the same. There we go.
Thanks
Good
for
evening.
repeating.
So as you know, we've been in front of the board for quite some time, and we've been back and forth with the board on site plan. So
Oh, I hope it's quick.
We'll keep the camera on now. I have the video off. That's the reason. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Bye, love. Bye. Bye.
We, whoever's on the meeting, could you please mute until we finish with the presentation and take your turn to do the public hearing?
All right, give me one more second. I'm just going through and muting everybody who's hasn't done that themselves. Okay, we should be able to proceed at this point, I think. All right, so go ahead, Carl. Why don't we start?
All right, let's repeat, Ken. And
all right, yeah, good evening.
do it for you.
We've been in front of the board for some time. We've been working with both staff, the planning board members, and community to make some changes. We've showed you these before, but we just wanted to kind of highlight them again. We adjusted the parking to move further away from the residences to the west. We aligned the entrance to Dean's Lane so that the entrance becomes more of a four-way entrance. We've taken the parking that was originally set, was facing outward, so there was some concern over the lights and things. We've moved that and switched that, so now the parking is faced inward for the most part, and the parking itself moved from 214 feet from the corner of the property to 290 feet, but the aisle here is 250, but to the nearest parking space is 290 feet where it was 214 before. The parking, the fire truck access to alumni and delivery access maintains the same route that it did before. We do provide delivery and fire truck here. Arlington Fire's reviewed that, as well as the town engineer for truck turn movements. The other component that we had was we worked with staff to preserve 63% of the lawn, and Vassar's agreed to maintain that in perpetuity. So that's a benefit to the community. We've added benches along the paths. There's some bike racks. One of the other major components is on the south end of the parking lot. They've added, or the lawn, the green area. We've added water and electric hookups for events that will happen in the lawn or can happen. So that is something that isn't there now that does provide a benefit. We've worked to landscape along College Avenue and work on some traffic calming measures along College Avenue as an outgrowth of conversations with staff and public. But I'll turn that over to Henry to talk through a little bit of College Avenue.
Thanks, Ken.
My name is Henry Thomas, and I'm a landscape architect and a principal with the LRC Group. Many months ago, there were comments offered by the board and suggestions to have dialogue with the immediate neighbors on College Avenue regarding the project and any issues that they might have or concerns. One of them, and the college then proceeded to have some dialogue with those neighbors. And one of the concerns that came up about the existing condition of College Avenue was the travel speed of vehicles on the street. And I think in large part that comes about because of the existing condition of the street, which is 36 to 38 feet wide of pavement with essentially only a center line to delineate the break in the road. There are no lane lines or delineated parking. So it's a relatively wide field in which to travel down. Taking into account that comment and giving it some consideration, the college decided that it would be appropriate to propose some traffic calming measures and make some traffic calming measures in the street, both as a community benefit and as an enhancement to the Inn project. And so we worked on several different ideas, ways of calming traffic, which is essentially adding a little bit of friction to slow cars down. And so in the plan, we had several meetings and reviews, conversations with neighbors of those ideas, and the plans that we submitted formally reflect those conversations. And that plan before you really has three major components that we consider traffic calming measures. The first is the provision of a median boulevard along the frontage where the inn is. And that's basically broken at the entrance to the inn. So there's one median that connects to Raymond Avenue, another median to the west of that intersection or that entrance. This is an 8-foot wide island that has trees and shrubs, grasses and perennials. So it's an improved island in terms of its aesthetic, but it provides a narrowing of the perceived width of the road. So instead of seeing 38 feet wide, you're seeing a travel lane with parallel parking adjacent to it. So we also delineate some parallel parking on the north side of the street, on both sides of the entrance to the inn. And the configuration of the median accounts for all of the driveways that come in and out of College Avenue. So everybody can continue to make the same kind of turning movements that they make today. So that's the first substantial gesture. The second one is the provision of a mid-block crossing. And that is, well, shown here where you can see the street from end to end. It's roughly just west of the middle of the block. And the idea there is to have a crosswalk to provide a safe place, a designated place to get across the street. But also it gives us an opportunity to elevate that crosswalk and use the crosswalk as a speed table or speed hump. So it's a 4-inch high crossing and ramps up and down gradually. Ramps up and down over that crosswalk and causes the vehicles to need to slow down to account for that vertical change.
Just a
It also-
quick question, that ramp up and
Certainly.
down, so that's okay for snow plows then?
Yes, yeah, that was one of the things that we had gotten feedback on. So it's only 4 inches high and that's over 8 feet. So it's softer than a normal ramp would be in that sense.
Continue.
Which would be, well, never mind. So it is softer than your average speed bump for sure. Very plowable. Also, the other thing that we've done in that is brought the curb lines in to the travel lanes so that the crossing is actually only over the 22 feet of the travel portion of the road. So it's a shorter distance to get across. The third element that we propose is doing something similar in terms of the curb lines, bringing those into the travel lane and eliminating any opportunity for parallel parking in the intersection, providing a crosswalk again across College Avenue and a delineated crosswalk across Park Avenue. And then thirdly, making the intersection an all-way stop. The existing condition that it is a stop on Park, but it's a through intersection on College. So this will give a legitimate reason to expect people to stop at least at that intersection. One last component that we're proposing to improve safety on the street, and one of the comments that we had gotten from neighbors was increase the level of lighting on College Avenue. And so from basically about this point westerly, we're introducing 4 new LED street lights that would be similar to the existing street lights that are there, but they would be placed between existing lights and effectively reduce the spacing of the lights by 1/2. And those would be placed on existing utility poles that are already in the street. So should provide a substantial improvement in that regard.
We just want to make sure that the temperature of those lights is not too bright.
It is
Right.
one of the, so Central Hudson has their set ones. The ones that are there are part of their approved plan, and they're the same lights that are there that are being proposed on the other poles.
Thanks.
With that, I think we're all set today.
All right, thanks for the presentation. Eric's away today, so he wrote up the recommendation, but I'll have Mike fill in for him.
Yep, so you have Eric's staff report from on the project. Just to recap, last time we had the project before the planning board was in April. At that meeting, the planning board adopted a negative declaration under seeker. The project did go back, the zoning amendment aspect of the project did go back to the town board, and on June 16th, the town board adopted the zoning code text amendments. Subsequent to that, the applicant did submit a revised application form, which now reflects that this is a special use permit in addition to the site plan approval. As far as, the changes go, there's not a lot else that we have in terms of comments on the site plan. Mostly they are items that we would typically address as conditions of approval. And you do have a draft resolution for special use permit, conditional special use permit, and conditional site plan approval in your packet. Let's see. We did receive some additional correspondence, some of which came earlier and which was responded to. For example, we had a report from the Arlington Neighborhood Association's traffic engineer with some questions, and we had that reviewed by our traffic consultant, JMC, and I believe Mark is on the phone, or should be, we'll see. But you do have his letter in the document, in the packet.
Yep.
We did get some additional letters just today, which were distributed to you on your desks. I think we should also mention, Lisa, I don't know if you want to mention that we've been served with Article 78 related to the seeker determination. That was just yesterday that we received that, but we were able to continue and go forward. And that is really it at this point. I don't know, Don, if you have anything on engineering?
We have minor comments. Most of them are relative to either the SOAR or the SWIP, but things are pretty well resolved on the engineering end.
All right, thanks, Don. And I see Mark is out there. Can you want to say anything on your
Sure.
final thought?
Yeah, not a problem. So I did have some comments. I don't know if they responded to my technical comments on the plans, and they're relatively minor technical comments that can be addressed with some revisions to their plans. But we did, as Michael said, reviewed the correspondence that was provided by the Arlington Association's engineer. We did provide our corresponding letter in response to that. It was items that were reviewed by our office as well as the DOT that were brought up. But that's the bulk of the response from our end.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Yep.
All right, this is on for a public hearing, so I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed 6-0 we have tonight. Okay, this is, I have 4 people that have signed up in the room here, and then we'll go to Zoom from there. We'll start with this. Remember, we have a lot of speakers tonight, so we'll do the 3-minute limit, and we have, keep in mind, we have received all your letters, and have read them. So we'll start off with Neil Lovinger. Here or there, where do you put let's see if that mic works. Is that one better? Yes. You have to turn that on. That's probably better.
Sorry, doesn't, a little too low. Thank you so much. I'm an immediate neighbor of the project. And so I first want to begin by saying I 100% support Vassar having it in an institute with a conference center and a hotel. I do not support the proposed location. I believe that the project is a great one in a different location that will bring benefits to the college, the neighborhood, and the business district. But in the proposed location, it's going to increase traffic, it's going to increase noise, it's going to increase the number of strangers walking through a residential neighborhood where children live. Vassar itself said that it didn't put the project on its campus because of safety issues with all the students wandering around. How can it be unsafe for students but safe for the children of faculty and children of neighbors who live along College, on Fulton Court and surrounding streets? The project is going to bring pollution to our neighborhood. If there's a conference center and a hotel, there's going to be trucks making deliveries, picking up trash. There's going to be people coming and going on all hours. I appreciate that the engineers referenced the comments of the neighbors when it came to the traffic plan, but you should know that the overwhelming sentiment of the people who live on College Avenue and Fulton Court is traffic modifications are nice, but we really want you to put this project somewhere else. Not one of you and not one other person in this room bought your house with the intention of living next to a busy hotel. If you wouldn't want that for yourself, please don't allow it to happen for somebody else. If the people at Vassar, the board, the administration wants a hotel next to where they live, as we say in Yiddish, sei gesund, go and be healthy, build your hotel next to your house. Please don't put the hotel next to the place where people live. And I would also point out, given the Article 78 that was filed, it would be irresponsible to go through the process of site approval when really the whole process should come to a halt until we resolve the 78 seeker question. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your comments. Next up, we have Jen Goldschmidt.
She's probably coming in from the car. Waiting.
Okay.
While she comes.
Or we can go to someone else on the list. There's Ari Goldschmidt here.
Oh,
Either
got
both
you.
together, yep. And Emil, all 3 of them, I guess, are still.
Well, we do have someone on the Zoom. We can start
Let's
there,
go with
maybe.
it. Yeah.
I see Bob Legacy has raised his hand. Bob?
Good evening. My name is Bob Legacy. I'm Director of the Arlington Business Improvement District. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Board of Directors, who is encouraging the Planning Board to approve this project tonight. As the business district comes out of the COVID-19, this project adds to the projects that are happening throughout the district to enhance and to bring more people into the area. In particular, having the inn where college students who are coming to visit, or prospective students, can actually stay and be near the college campus and also walk through the business district when they're staying in the area. It also offers an opportunity to bring in world-class speakers to come to speak about events and issues that affect all of us here in Poughkeepsie and throughout our country and this state, that are a common place where we can meet and discuss issues in a civilized way and come up with solutions. The environmental impacts with the green study being done and using thermal wells and green energy savings is a great addition to the local area, especially for the high schools who can come and learn about green energy and the benefits to our society and our public. But on behalf of the business district, bringing new people into the district is very important to us. As the town of Poughkeepsie changes, the demographics change, as Eastdale Village comes on board and the Heritage Center, the business district needs to look to expand ourselves and to want people to come into the area. And the Senate Institute is a great source of bringing new people into an area to dine and to shop and to help maintain Arlington as a town center for years to come. I thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Bob. Anyone else on Zoom?
Yeah.
I don't see-
We have Michael Epstein, who has a hand raised.
There's actually a list of people on Zoom in the chat that
I'll check
that
that.
should be received in order, I think. I'm the third on that list. The first is Cheryl Smilkin.
Well, I think, all right, hold on. Let me take a look at the chat. Okay, thank you. All right, yep, Cheryl's. Smith?
Cheryl Smichael, yes,
Michael.
SMIKLE. Thank you so much for the opportunity and thank you, Mr. Epstein. So I'm wearing the hat of an alum, a resident of Dutchess County for 20 years and a professional who's both an academic and someone who knows a little bit about compliance. And generally speaking, I'd say that the college has more than exceeded its due diligence. It's not check the box compliance. It has extended itself for every stakeholder concern because stakeholders, there are two types, those that feel it's going to be a positive, like the Arlington Neighborhood Association, and those who feel it's going to be an adverse impact, like those that live on College Avenue and Fulton Court. I'm one of those that think that it's going to be positive. They have answered every complaint. They have exceeded every concern. They've brought in architects that are mission conscious. Vassar has always melded the contemporary with the historical. This project is no different, but under the leadership of our current president, who has a background in public health, we're now seeing less town and gown tension. This is going to be open to the public. Students are going to be able to partake of career development programming around sustainability careers. It's going to be a real way to bring the community together. When the business community votes for it, which is a first, because I've seen through the years that they've often been on the opposite side. That to me is a resounding endorsement. The faculty's in favor of it. Vassar has really hit the national scene with COVID, and part due because of the focus of the president, who has a background in public health. So I think it's high time that we allow the college to use the land that they own to further its mission, to benefit the community, and to ensure that its history of educating not only the people who have the privilege of going there, but those who may aspire to get to know the college better. I think that this is a very good step forward into the next 150 years for Vassar. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Next is Tony Frisha.
Yes, hi, thank you, Tony Frisha. I'm chair of the Board of Trustees at Vassar, and I wanted to just share our motivations for this building. And I also want to say, with regard to an inn and hotel on College Avenue, the Alumni House, a 50-room inn, was built right there in 1924 and has functioned very well since then. But the important thing for me to say is that when President Bradley started and I became chair of the board and we set goals, one of the top goals was that we wanted to build a strong relationship to the surrounding area, to the town, to the city of Poughkeepsie. And we saw this building as a bridge between Vassar and the community. And that's the reason why we wanted it to be off the campus, so that it would be part of the Arlington Business District. It would be a resource for local residents. Beyond that, we see it as a model of sustainability, as was mentioned before, and also as a destination that would bring people from outside the area into the town. It's important for me to say that everything about this building was designed with the community in mind, including the changes that were presented earlier. We selected an architect, Fred Fisher, after a 3-year search because we felt he could do the best job for the local community. Preserving the green space in perpetuity was something that was we knew would be important, and accepted that. Having a zero carbon footprint, we think, is an important milestone for the area. So saying that anything we're doing was not done with community intent is really not the case. And I want to close by saying that what Vassar does in the community is also important to me personally, and it's one of the reasons why we've acted as we have. I have family in the area. My wife went to Arlington Public Schools. Her father was a charter member of the Arlington Rotary. So doing the right thing by the community is not just important to me as a Vassar alum, but it's important to me personally. So I just want to close by saying we conceive this building to be something that the community would be proud of. And I believe that that's what it will be. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your comments, Tony.
All right, then I guess Mark, who was on before Epstein, Mark Epstein.
Hi, thank you. Let me just, yeah, 1 second. Good. Hi, I'm a Vassar faculty member for over 30 years and a resident of Arlington, right down the street from the proposed site, with children both in the Arlington public school systems and at Vassar College. And I'd like to second the very eloquent words of Dr. Smikle, sorry, I mispronounced your name, and of Tony Friscia. I really believe that this project will bring a great deal of intellectual and cultural and community energy to our neighborhood. I'm a native of, New York City before those 30 years, and have always wished for Arlington to have some of the positive aspects of that energy without the negative. I think Tony is correct to point out that there has been an inn on the site for quite a long time, and that what goes on the back end is manageable in the neighborhood. I love the fact that the proposed situation is on the cusp of the community and the college, but not on the campus. I feel perfectly safe with my children in the vicinity of this Innan Institute. And I should say that I also love the idea, and I was concerned about the preservation of the green space. I think that's a major and very important step here. I'm also thrilled that the architects and the planners and the college have very closely and conscientiously listened to what the neighbors have said. And, in response to the question, would I like to have a hotel in my backyard? I would like to have an Innan Institute in my backyard. A hotel is something quite different, I think. And I look forward to the approval of this plan. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Next on this list is Micah Kenfield.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Micah Kenfield. I'm Vassar College's Director of Sustainability. In past conversations and presentations, we've referred to the Institute as Vassar's public classroom. Tonight, I'd like to share with you just a little bit about how that extends down to the site itself as a living laboratory for sustainability. The project was developed with the support of our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Toolkit, designed to minimize runoff and negative environmental impacts while reusing salvage materials on site. The lessons we learned from this site can inform future projects, both on our own campus at Vassar, as well as the community and beyond. Continuing this theme, the project was recently announced as a recipient of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority's prestigious and competitive Energy to Lead Award. We're building educational programming that's free for the community around features that make this a net zero emission building. This extends down to the trees, shrubs, and other components that provide substantial aesthetic and ecological benefit, including improved air quality. Finally, even our parking area helps support sustainability in the community. With the addition of a bank of chargers for electric vehicles, visitors to the area, whether it's for an event, a meal, or the farmer's market, will have access to this valuable amenity. These site elements, along with so many other features of the building itself outside the scope of this presentation, ensure that the project provides strong and positive environmental impacts that we'll see both throughout the community, extending far, far beyond. So thank you again, and look forward to the rest of this process.
Thanks, Micah.
Next would be Katie Height.
Hello, my name is Katie Height. I'm actually a resident and homeowner in the city of Poughkeepsie, 80 North Water Street. And I'm a longtime professor of political science at Vassar and a strong advocate for the Institute and IN. I'm also the co-chair of the local community organization celebrating the African spirit, CAS, and some of you may have heard of us through our organizing the recent commemoration of Frederick Douglass's 1858 speech in Poughkeepsie atop College Hill Park. It was a wonderful Sunday afternoon with over 200 people from the city and the town of Poughkeepsie enjoying the great actor from the touring cast of Hamilton, Paul Stovall, reading from Douglass's speech. Vassar was a financial support of the event in an important way. In any case, I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about the Institute and Inn. It opens up physical space and programming for collaborative work that we've never really had institutionally at Vassar. We can bring and house scholars from across the country and the world together in Poughkeepsie at the same time in the same space, or facilitate discussions among local government planners, community stakeholders from here in Poughkeepsie and other areas of the Hudson Valley and beyond, to work on policy-minded projects in such arenas as education, housing, the environment, and other pressing issues for our communities, or offering the space to partner with community organizations and members on all kinds of initiatives. For the past 3 summers, Vassar has modeled a glimpse of what the Institute could do and is focusing this year on the idea of looking back, looking forward, and opening better as all of us navigate the uncertain terrain of both what COVID meant over the past year and a half and what it continues to mean. Last month, Vassar held a 2-day public institute, a series of Zoom webinars on public art on campus and in the community. Speakers included local urban designers, art historians, biologists, gardeners, community arts education specialists, and others. They discussed local initiatives and future projects and possibilities, and the Institute enjoyed a large public virtual participatory audience. I'm excited about what this kind of event can physically look like in the new space. I also really appreciate that the Institute and Inn are located outside of Vassar's traditional walls, still on Vassar property, while spatially more inviting and connecting, I think, with an environmentally conscious, state-of-the-art facility that opens up to community in new ways for our institution. The fact that the board and the college has agreed to maintain the public green in perpetuity, and with it, the Thursday Vassar Farmers Market, is also so nice for us as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Katie.
Next is Joanne Lukacher.
Lucasher, yes, thank you. My name is Joanne Lucasher. I'm an Arlington resident. I'm also a historic preservationist by profession. And I guess I'm the fly in the ointment here because I would like to point out that against the unanimous recommendation of the town-appointed Historic Review Board and flouting the principles of its own master plan, the town declined to recognize Williams House Complex as a historic landmark. This decision was contrary to the recommendation of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the New York State Historic Preservation Office, the Preservation League of New York State, our elected representatives at both the state and local level, and numerous historic preservation and architectural history experts, as well as historians. And this includes the consultant hired by the town to conduct its town-wide historic resource survey, the town's own consultant. Without ever addressing or considering the many environmental concerns expressed by neighborhood residents in a series of public meetings. And I'm sorry, these little meetings that you held to tinker here and there on the edges of the design, I mean, when it seemed to be a foregone conclusion, were hardly sufficient. And if you're saying that Vassar's gone above and beyond and it does everything to accommodate the neighborhood and wants to work with the neighborhood, why has a lawsuit been filed? And why are so many people here today, residents and former residents of the neighborhood, Arlington residents, here in opposition to the citing of this plan? Over 2 years, the neighborhood has talked about increased traffic, demolition of historic structures, which I'm sure and hope many more people will speak about, the elimination of a historic community green space, the safety of pedestrians and cyclists. How does this relate to public health? The degradation of neighborhood character and residential property values, noise and light pollution, parking issues. Where are the people coming to the town market, to the neighborhood market supposed to park? It was pretty crowded when I was there today. The town, without justification and in contradiction of the best modern planning principles, and its own town adopted and published master plan with its emphasis on preserving neighborhoods and preserving historic structures, issued a declaration of no impact under seeker in a manner that I would call the definition of arbitrary and capricious. For these reasons, I ask that you deny this site plan and work with the developer, Vassar College, defined, and more appropriate alternative location for this project. May I also point out that the location of this project, and many of the people speaking for this, are from the town business district. This project is not in the business district. It's in the residential area, and which is what the town business district has expressed in a publication, that it wants to upgrade the appearance of its buildings to be more like the well-preserved and lovely homes in the residential area, which is where you're putting this building. No architecture or historic architecture or architectural historians or art historians were at all included in the selection of this architect and the approval of this design. And the little tinkering at the edges that you've done does absolutely nothing to make it anything distinctive, anything reflecting the town of Poughkeepsie, the historic Vassar campus, which is itself eligible, the entire thing, to be included on the National Register of Historic Places. The college has declined doing that. This absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. And I will yield the rest of my time, if any is left, to all the people who can speak to the history and beauty of the area. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Joanne. Is there anyone else on the Zoom?
Yeah, there's more. Stephen Mafia.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Maffia. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New York State. On behalf of the Arlington Neighborhood Association, I reviewed traffic, parking, access, and safety issues associated with the proposed Inn and Institute. I provided letter reports to this board and to the town board back on July 22nd, and I'm here tonight to summarize some of those key points. I'll focus more on safety tonight, but in addition to that, regarding traffic and parking, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, that some of the key items that were requested in terms of more detailed traffic studies were not submitted by the applicant. That would be detailed traffic analyses, level of service analyses, and so on. I also found that trip generation estimates were under evaluated in terms of the restaurant. And I also found that the parking layout was one that would require a lot of crossing of Raymond Avenue once parking on the campus had to be utilized for larger events. However, regarding safety, which I think is the most important issue that I think has been unevaluated by the applicant, there will be additional pedestrian and traffic activity, which at times could be significantly high. And I don't believe that the applicant has studied any of those impacts on the intersections and crossings between the campus and the site on College Avenue. We started to delve into some of the accident history for College Avenue and in particular Raymond Avenue, the arterial which serves the site. Initial records from the police department showed that there were 62 accidents in 1 year alone on Raymond Avenue between Main Street and Hooker Avenue. And that's a significant number of incidents that should be looked into in more detail, especially given the fact that once completed, this development is likely to generate additional pedestrian and bicycle traffic along Raymond Avenue and between the college campus and the site. As we continue to look at this information, we got additional data from the New York State Department of Transportation. And all told, it seems that in the last 10 years, there have been over 500 accidents on Raymond Avenue alone between Main Street and Hooker Avenue. That is a significant number of accidents and safety history that must be looked at in more detail before any approvals for a site plan are given. In addition, we know that the planning board now has the opportunity to require these missing studies before any further approvals are given, one of which would be to evaluate alternative locations for this for the development. In addition to the site, it's the campus itself, which is over 850 acres. There are other sites that could be utilized for this particular use.
Okay, could you wrap up? 3 minutes?
Sure. So you have the opportunity, I would say at this point in summary, that in order to understand the potential impacts and extent of the project impacts, including traffic and parking and safety, and in doing so, you would be much better informed as to what the potential impacts would be and how to mitigate them once completed. So that's my summary. Again, my reports and other letters prior to this are included in the packages, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time or later on. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yes,
Still working through the list on the chat. I do see someone also who raised their hand, which I appreciate. We will get to that person as well. Next on the list is Karen Van Langen.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, small introduction. I'm Karen Van Langen. I'm an alumna of Vassar College. I'm also an architect licensed in New York State. And I'm also the co-author with Lisa Riley of the Campus Guide to Architecture. So over a long period of time, I have authored several articles and this book, and have looked very carefully at the planning of Vassar College, its history, its landscape architecture, and its wonderful diversity of buildings. And I think this edition, the Institute and its edition, is not only really important for the development of the college because of all the things that have been said already, its opportunities for the community, its opportunities for Poughkeepsie, for Arlington, for the college itself, and for any other guests that can come together in a concentrated way for the development of intellectual ideas, the development of community interests, et cetera. I really think it's an important institute, and one that should not be located inside the college gates. And for all of those reasons, I think it should be one of these spaces, just the way Alumni House was one day, located near, but not in it. And this will alleviate any pressure of sort of penetrating what seems to be, a fairly distinct border between the town and gown. So I really think it's a wonderful project. I think the diversity of architectural language is appropriate and thoughtfully worked out so that there are references to historic architecture, and at the same time, an introduction to contemporary architecture practice and materials. Vassar has always, or not always, but in many periods of its history, introduced new architectural languages to the campus. The Breuer Building, Ferry House, the Saarinen dorms, et cetera. This is an opportunity to continue in that tradition and bring new contemporary architecture to the college in that location. And I do think the location is appropriate. I think that it will add to the neighborhood in a way that we don't even know what a rich possibility that is for the people who might live on the street and can go to many of the functions so easily. I don't discount the traffic issues, so I think that that's something that, having been a dean at the University of Virginia and watching things that we added to the traffic as it got heavier, were not difficult things to add. And I think that we have been successful in creating a very safe environment. And I think the potential is here as well. So I just want to support the project and say I think it is consistent with the values and the future aims of the college to really begin finally to bridge to the community. I really feel like that's important. So thank you.
3 minutes is up. All right. Thanks, Karen.
Just reminding everybody again, 3 minutes is what we're targeting. We have a long list of people still asking to speak. Luke Hunsberger, you are next.
Hi, I was having trouble on my own computer, so I'm switching to my wife's. First of all, as Neil said, this is 100% support for the I&I, just not at the proposed location. So everything Robert Legacy said about the improvements that it will bring to the business district and so on have no bearing on this project at this location. It could be elsewhere and still support the business district's aims. The Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended preserving the Williams buildings. The town board rejected their unanimous recommendation. The zoning board administrator ruled that the institutional zone cannot include a commercial hotel. The town board rejected this and made a change to the zoning text to allow the hotel in the institutional zone. By the way, the Alumni House maybe had 50 rooms a long time ago, but right now it's only got 13, 14, or 15 rooms. And so introducing on top of those 13 rooms, another hotel with 50 rooms would be a major change to the status quo in the residential area. The community members have repeatedly expressed that the green space should not be destroyed. Preserving half the green space is not preserving the green space. It's preserving half the green space, and having the farmers market and other events in the shadow of the Inn and Institute totally will change the way that green space can be used. So they talk about, wanting to improve the relationship between the town and Gown. Well, right now that green space is part of the healthy part of the relationship between Vassar and the surrounding community. Over the years, 3 years, the planning board members have repeatedly asked Vassar to consider alternative locations, other than some, very quick put downs of the close alternatives. Vassar has really ignored these pleas. There have been repeated times the planning board members have very strenuously asked Vassar to consider alternatives, but they've just refused. And tearing down Williams is not a zero carbon footprint solution. Tearing down a building has impacts because you have to dispose of all the materials. You've got the carbon that's been put into the building of the building, and then you're throwing that all away. Then you're bringing in new materials and so on. So it's not a zero impact. All right, so for all these reasons and what other people have said, I encourage the planning board not to allow this project to go through at this location. Send it back to Vassar saying they need to find a different location that doesn't have all these negatives. There's too many negatives. This project at this location should be opposed. Vassar can have all the benefits of the Inn and Institute by putting it somewhere else. The business district can have all the benefits of the Inn and Institute by putting it somewhere else nearby, for example, along College View Avenue, where Vassar is already planning to do some more development for their admissions office and so on. So please reject this.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay, next is Julie Sabo.
Hi, my name is Julie Szabo, and I'm a former resident of Williams, and we have been involved along with the ANA and the community for 3 years in fighting this project and begging Vassar to consider another site. We love our neighborhood the way it is. We loved living in Williams. We love the historic nature of Williams. We love walking along the street and having a quiet neighborhood. We love the farmers market and the way it works. And there's no reason that it can't be somewhere else. So we can have our neighborhood as we love it and loved it, and that the Vassar can have its Inn and Institute and all the benefits associated with it. I have to say, as a community member that has been involved with the struggle for 3 years, and we've gone to endless meetings, gone to planning board meetings, zoning board meetings, we hand wrote and filed our historic application that the town ignored. I really resent this thing that Vassar is now saying about the Inn and Institute will be this town and gown miracle. It's not. Vassar has deliberately ignored and continued to ignore the voices of the community that have objected to the site and location of this project since the beginning. All we've asked for Vassar is to consider a different site. And I still don't understand why that can't happen. And this lawsuit that is coming out of that is because we have been continually ignored. So good, now there's a lawsuit for the town. Please listen to that.
Thanks for your comments.
Next is Erica Bates.
Yes, hi. So I work with Vassar and live up in northern Westchester. Alumni House was built in 1924, and in 1938 is when it became a pub and had also hotel rooms. So this is not a new use. This is, we're talking about decades that has been a use in this area. I'd also like to note, just as traffic calming is being suggested and from being listened to for the community, this is another example. Vassar does reach out. I mean, the streetlights along Raymond that were put in nearly a year ago, that was not on campus. That was goodwill toward the community to do something good for the community. So and also the green, the whole project and the grant given to this, it's another example of Vassar extending their intellectual and educational value out into the community. There is so much that is already done with the schools, and this is just one more way that we will see this, and it will benefit the children and the residents of the town. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Erica.
Okay, next is, Lisa Call.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. My name is Lisa Call. I'm the director of the Office of Community Engaged Learning at Vassar College. I'm also a longtime resident of the town of Poughkeepsie. And I'm here to speak in favor of the Innan Institute and in the location, the proposed location. One of the major reasons why I came to be in favor of the Innan Institute was because I saw an example of it at Oberlin College. And I was really astounded at the way in which the Innan Institute at Oberlin opened up the campus. As people have spoken before me, housing something like the Innan Institute on campus will not provide the function that we're looking for, which is of really showcasing, of bringing a space to the town of Poughkeepsie where we showcase not only talent from around the world, but really showcase the potential of Poughkeepsie. And I believe its location right by the college, right next to the Arlington Business District, in close proximity to the Boardman Road Library, in close proximity to the preserve, really creates this hub where Arlington truly becomes a really vibrant neighborhood. I, for one, would love to be able to live close to it because I would be able to walk to it. It is also along a bus route. We have a senior center in the town of Poughkeepsie, which is out on Abe's Way. I know a lot of seniors use the Boardman Road Library, and they would like something in close proximity. And we don't have anything of this sort right now. And in terms of talking about the community, we have a wider community outside, right where on College View and College Avenue. There are schools in the neighborhood, and all these various schools have students who would be able to walk to the Innan Institute to enjoy the programming that's going to happen there. I don't have to tell you that we're hopefully coming out of COVID, coming into a period where we want to see some kind of economic recovery. And I strongly believe that the Innan Institute, where it's proposed, is going to be a site for that economic recovery. And having the farmers market, which I attended today, in the vicinity of the Innan Institute is just going to provide more space for people who attend the farmers market to maybe go take in a show at the Innan Institute. So it's really going to add to the farmers market, not detract from it. I strongly hope that you will consider this proposal and go forward with it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lisa.
Next is Jennifer Burke Goldschmidt. She said that we will come in to speak when called.
I'm coming right in. Thank you.
Okay.
We gotta go. Let's go.
Just want to say we appreciate everyone staying within the 3 minutes since there's so many speakers tonight. So thanks for doing that. Is there anyone else on?
I'm looking to see. Yeah, there was a hand up, but I think I hear them coming.
Yep. they're coming in now.
Just, if you want to just share them with Carol or Amanda, we'll distribute them. Thank you.
For the record, this is a foil of SCPA directly to Vassar. And this is the traffic engineer's report and all access reports that we've accessed so far along the strip of Raymond from the town of Poughkeepsie Police and from the New York State Department. Notebook. Thank you for holding this public hearing. My name is Jennifer Burke Goldschmidt. I live at 6 Fulton Court, also one of the 3 coordinators of the Arlington Neighborhood Association. To clear up one myth about SHPO, SHPO wrote Vassar that they would concede to sign off on demolition only if to protect the green on Raymond Avenue from any new construction. And that is in that document. Okay, there is no argument with the merits of the Annan Institute or the benefit to the business community. There's no argument with its environmental technology, but it is not dependent. These things, these merits are not dependent on the destruction of siting it at this location. This location is unlike most colleges in the country who have hotels. They locate them in the campus center. They locate them in areas of town that badly need an injection, a boost of economic development. We couldn't find a single college in the whole country, researching over 100, that located in a residential area. As far as town gown tensions, I remember when Vassar cared for the community and invited us in, and I remember what the tone was like at that time. I'm still in shock that the coordinator of community relations at Vassar said to me, when I suggested Vassar might support an anti-gun violence event in the city, I was asked, why should Vassar care about this and be involved? The town and gown standards for land use and development have been documented by the Lincoln Institute for Land Policy, and Vassar, there's a list of what to do and what not to do, and unfortunately Vassar has not begun on the list of what to do yet. The Vassar employees testifying, without exception, do not live in the town's definition of adjoining properties. Vassar alumni and Vassar staff are testifying as employees, and in my opinion, should be sharing their time with the Vassar presentation, not with the community's time for a public hearing. 31 College Avenue residents wrote letters to the town of Poughkeepsie that I've submitted to the planning board against this location. And that includes addresses 105, 106, 109, 115, 121, 124, 128, 136, 142, 143, 144, 145, 151, 152, 153, 160, 162, 163, 165, 167, 169, College Avenue. Then there are another 24 along Fulton and many, many, many along Raymond. The gaslighting and doublespeak and lying is too much. The ANA was never invited to a community meeting with Vassar. We were excluded from all meetings that took place only with Vassar faculty. We were asked to meet privately with Vassar, and every time we offered to accommodate and create a public meeting, it was declined until March of this year. The doublespeak includes the quote from the alternatives analysis. The location of the tennis courts is in close proximity to the student dorms and would have posed a safety risk to the student body. And then Brian Swarthout to Mike Welty. For the project to be financially viable, we need the ability to utilize all time and space for the public. May we suggest that the original language be reinserted, that this is part of the university's outreach to the local community and to support the business system. So that's doublespeak. Is it feasibility for the project to be financially viable? Then put that in the law. But don't tell us that you're reaching out to us in the same sentence, tell us it's for your financial viability. Finally, the town of Poughkeepsie Zoning Board of Appeals, and Historic Commission, honing to town law, recommended against this particular location for this wonderful project. And the town board overrode and vetoed their own agencies. So here's the thing. Unfortunately for the town of Poughkeepsie, you never notified 8 to 20 landowners within 200 feet. If you haven't had a chance to look through our Article 78, the bad news is the last 3 years, every single bit of this process has not been legal. Every notice to the homeowners along College Avenue was sent to Vassar College. And there's no evidence that Vassar College informed the homeowners on College Avenue of their legal rights, and they were intimidated by their employer and had no idea they had legal rights. You're wondering why my husband and I are always the only ones. There are only 2 or 3 resident owners on Fulton Court who were notified by the town of Poughkeepsie of their legal rights. So sadly, I don't think you should continue pretending like this has been a fair process. This conversation should be about the site. And this site is a historic site that is recognized nationally in the state of New York and locally. My son, Ari Lev Goldschmidt, would like to speak on behalf of my children. I thank you very much for your service of the people. Come on in.
Thanks, Jen.
You want to do this, honey? You don't have to do it. You do want to do it. Okay. You don't want to. Do you want me to read it? So sit next to me and I'll read. Okay? Yeah, you guys can sit right here. But I might not be able to read your handwriting, so you might need to help me. Do I have permission to help my son who's looking a little scared? But he wrote it in his handwriting, they're not my words. Where is it?
Sure thing.
Thank you. How old are you, Ari Lev? Louder? 9. Okay, Amelie, how old are you? 7. Okay. Starting here. My name is Ari Lev. I can't read it.
I don't want to have the green torn out. You see, first they took away our playground, then the library was gone, then poof, poof goes the school.
The library is gone, and then poof goes the school. Nice and loud, huh?
The green should not be next. Arlington is becoming less of a neighborhood by the minute. Another thing is my friend Hayden lived a minute away from my house. Unfortunately, I found this out so late that there was only time for 2 playdates before she had to leave so her building could be demolished.
Louder.
If the Innan Institute gets built here, there will be more fast cars making it unsafe for kids like my sister and I.
You're doing great, kid.
There will also be more people that don't care about the neighborhood. This is your job to give my sister and I a safe and happy neighborhood. Some ideas are making a new public library there and a playground in the corner of the green and not tearing out the green, and also an ideas box and walking distance from people's homes so everyone can have their ideas considered.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ari, for participating in this process.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, there's a lot in the chat, so I'm just trying to pick through and make sure I'm not missing anybody who asked to speak on there. Okay, so I'm going to go to the raised hand. That was say Mike Caruso.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
All right, good evening, everybody. I represent the constituents who have been referenced earlier in the Article 78. The reason why I'm appearing tonight is obviously to answer any questions, but more importantly, to urge the board not to act on an application that might generate a multiplicity of lawsuits with the possibility of unnecessary duplication. I'm sure the board and its consultants and counsel are aware of my client's position in the litigation. As Jen had referenced, there may be some procedural defects inherent to the public hearing process, but more importantly, we would, on behalf of my clients, I just urge the board not to take action that could be undone by a decision by the Dutchess Supreme Court relating to the secret process and secret implementation. That's really it for my client's position. I think the documents you have will speak for themselves, and my clients are going to make their positions on the record as well. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll give the floor back.
All right, thanks, Mike. We have your.
All right, thank you.
There is one other that Z Zlotnick.
Oh, hi, that's me, Susan Zlatnik. I live on 162 College Ave, so literally right across the street from where this Inn and Institute is going. And I've been sitting here quietly. I obviously oppose the building of the Inn and Institute on College Avenue, as do almost all of my neighbors on College Avenue. And it's been a little infuriating to sit here and hear people speak about how delighted we'll be when the Inn and the Institute will be built. Well, actually, we won't be delighted. Losing our neighborhood is not going to be worth the trade-off of, oh, yay, we can get a cappuccino across the street. I don't need to get a cappuccino across the street. I can make one in my own home. What I can't make in my own home by myself is a residential neighborhood. And it's pretty clear that the Inn and the Institute is going to destroy the residential neighborhood of College Avenue, particularly. And I think there's already evidence of that. I don't know if the town board has walked down College Avenue recently, but if you look at 170 College Avenue, it's a house that's been abandoned now for 5 or 6 years. There are trees growing out of the roof at this point. There are vines hanging down in front of the windows. It looks like the little lost house in the forest, because no one's going to buy that house. It's a faculty house owned by Vassar. No one wants a house across from the Inn and the Institute. The house next door at 168 College is currently owned by a widow of a faculty member, a woman named Marianne Mason. I saw a moving truck in front of that house about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and the mover said she was moving out, which means that'll be another empty house on College Avenue. And again, when that house gets sold back to the college, who's going to want to buy a big house right across from a commercial inn, a restaurant, and a bar? There's a great place to raise your children. I also like to point out that the Dean of the Faculty's house, which is on Dean's Lane right behind the 170 College Avenue house, has been empty now for, I think, 2 or 3 years. The Dean of the Faculty has chosen not to live there. So we're already seeing a kind of emptying out, not only of Williams, which is an enormous loss to the residential nature of the neighborhood, but we're now slowly seeing, what we're going to slowly see is that the houses at the eastern end of College Avenue are going to be emptied out. And to be perfectly honest, my husband and I have had conversations about our long-term viability on College Avenue. If I have to live across from a giant parking lot, a giant commercial hotel, a restaurant, and a bar. So I just think that you're gonna have all these people saying it's going to improve the neighborhood, but the evidence, that I see before my eyes is that it's already destroying the neighborhood. And that the only thing that can reverse that is if we make if the college and the planning board forces the college to make the decision to put the Inn and the Institute somewhere else. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments, Susan.
A raised hand from Marcel Garcia. You're on mute. Marcel, you are on mute.
We're not hearing you. You're still on.
There we go. I'm sorry. My name is Marcel Garcia. I'm here on another matter, but I've lived on College Avenue for 30 years. I attended Vassar College in the 70s and was a faculty brat for 30 years. And I walk my dogs daily down College to the Arlington Business District. And I can say that Vassar has done a really poor job in keeping that stretch of College Avenue looking decent after they shut down Williams. My wife just went down there to take a photograph, which you probably can't see very well, but anybody who's been down there knows that they have not maintained the sidewalk. They have not maintained the green area. The fire hydrant is overgrown. A simple 5 minutes with a weed whacker would take care of that. So I have some mistrust as to Vassar's commitment to the community. I'd also like to say that Vassar has been using herbicides along Raymond Avenue routinely. I'm an early walker. I encountered a gentleman in an orange Kubota vehicle spraying out of the back on Raymond, not on Vassar proper, but around the circle. And I asked him what he was spraying, and he laughed and said, "You don't want to know." So I would at least ask that we have some assurance that Vassar is going to take care, better care of the property than they have since they shut down Williams. There's graffiti, it's overgrown, there's ticks, it's a disgrace. Clean it up. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comments, Marcel.
One other hand raised, it's Anita Dutt.
Hi, thanks. I'm also a graduate of the college in the 1970s. My comments are very brief because I think the neighborhood people have said the most important things. I'm just continually shocked at my alma mater to build something like this. It disrespects the history of the college. It disrespects green space, which is something that, you know, it's a value that is being touted here. But to demolish Williams and wreck half of the green is just so disrespectful. And last but not least, that the college has not taken seriously these concerns of the neighbors in the residential area, I just find shocking and really disappointing, which is my main thought. I don't live there any longer. I live in New York, but it's a tremendous disappointment to me in Vassar. And I hope that maybe there's a way this could be resolved in a better way. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Anita. Still looking for anyone else in the room wish to speak? Any keep looking on Zoom here?
Checking on the Zoom again. If you
A couple of minutes.
one more chat. No, that's still just conversation. Someone has their hand up. Oh, like a literal hand, like on the screen. Okay, Beth. Yeah, there we go. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yep. Hi, Beth.
Yes,
You're
Beth,
on mute.
still on- There you go.
Okay, can you hear me? No?
Now
Hear
we
me
can.
now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yes, okay. I have spoken at numerous meetings in the last going on 3 years now about the historical importance of Williams House, and I've also spoken about the tradition that Vassar has had in an alum like Jackie Kennedy for trying to preserve important historical spaces. The college says that they'll preserve a few pieces of the roof of Williams. What would you think if you went into what would no longer be Grand Central Station or the White House, and Jackie Kennedy worked to preserve both of those, and you were given a few pieces of some old roof, but the building looked completely different, and there was none of the sense of wonder that you have when you face either of those traditional buildings. I spoke last time in June, however, about the importance of the green space, and that matters especially to me. And having Jennifer Burke's kids come in, even though they were a little shy about speaking, I think is important, because we really need to remember during the pandemic, especially, how precious it is to have this green space, this park, for all of the Arlington neighborhood. And when I go by there, I'm really, really moved when I see children playing. I see art classes, I see them drawing, and I see people sitting in groups. I see them laughing. Sometimes I see older people like myself, someone who's sitting in a wheelchair, and sometimes people are alone, but they're appreciating the natural world. My background for nearly a half a century of teaching at Vassar in the English department was the English poet William Wordsworth, who talked about the importance of nature in our life. And I think the green space ought to be preserved in its entirety, not just partially. And when I last spoke about that green space, I talked about the important things that a few wise naturalists had said in the past. And some of you might recall the words of Albert Einstein, which I quoted before. Look deeper into nature, and then you will understand everything better. I think of that when I see people sitting there, just not talking with others, but staring at a tree or a cloud. Others might think of John Burroughs' statement, I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order. And again, during the pandemic, I know that more and more people are taking walks or going to the parks to try to calm down and not commit suicide. And I'm working as a psychoanalyst now, and I know a lot about suicides in this time. We can also think of Frank Lloyd Wright's words, I believe in God, only I spell it Nature, or Shakespeare's assertion, one touch of nature makes the whole world kin. We could use a little more kinship, couldn't we? And a little less gun violence and anger between people. So there we are. And then again, we have Thoreau saying, heaven is under our feet as well as over our heads. Sensing the sacred power in the natural world led Native Americans to honor and revere their environment. Poughkeepsie is a Native American word that some of you may know. It means the little wattle hut at the watering place by the river. And they felt the natural world was sacred and they revered it. And they regarded themselves as stewards rather than owners of their land. They accepted a responsibility to ensure its healthy survival for their descendants and tellingly observed, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. I'd like to ask the members of the board and some of the people who've spoken against the preservation of this space, do you have children or grandchildren of your own who like to play outside? Did you like to play outside when you were a kid? I sure did. Now, do you see us borrowing natural spaces from our children? Or do you see us thieving those spaces and trashing what we have presumably borrowed? As members of our town planning board, I'm addressing the board now, you are stewards to ensure that the living presence of nature survives for our children and grandchildren in parks and green spaces. We're trusting you with a vital legacy. Please don't betray that trust. We need the space. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
I did see another hand, I believe.
There's another hand up. Let's anyone on the Zoom call still wish to make another comment? Karen Robertson, perhaps? Karen, are you?
Yeah, I've unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. I live on College Avenue. I worked at Vassar for 36 years, but I'm no longer an employee. I'm retired. I, like some of the alums who have spoken, am appalled by this behavior by the administration and trustees of the college to take away a green space and to destroy a residential area. The college touts itself for the residential nature of the faculty around the school. Suddenly taking away a quiet residential street and resolutely refusing to investigate other spaces for this in an institute seem authoritarian. I just ask you, as our board, as the board of the residents and citizens of this town, that you prevent this destruction of a space and also a building that matters to many of us. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Karen. Look again. You can raise your hand on mute. I mean, on the.
I'm not seeing any.
If you're on the phone, you can hit *6 and unmute that way.
I believe that's
good. We're still able to do this hybrid format here to allow more people to participate.
Okay, I think we don't have anyone else seeking to speak.
All right, thanks everyone for all your comments tonight.
Brian Lukacher put his comments in the chat because he had to go. I hope those will be entered into the record.
All right. I mean, yeah, you spoke as well. Lou. And we've seen.
No,
many-
Brian did not speak.
Okay, well, we will have the recording of the chat in the record as well.
All right. Thanks, everyone. At this point, I'll move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, this time we'll go around the board for comments. And move forward. Let's see where we're at. Start with Nicole tonight.
I don't have any comments.
All right.
Yeah, Ken, I've got one question for you on those hookups that you mentioned. Can you elaborate a bit more on that? Is it going to be like a one kind? I don't know what I'm talking about just one plug, or is it? What's the capacity of that?
The water and sewer or
Water and
electric
Right.
connections. I don't know if you want to speak to it a little more, but so what we're looking at doing is creating a pull box that's basically at ground level, that's so it doesn't stick up or anything like that, that has the ability to open up. Electrician would set up like a switch so that multiple plugs can be brought in depending on where the power needs to be go. It's not one plug like a little 110 outlet. It's more of a high powered thing to be able to run multiple different items that are there. As far as water goes, it's a small spigot. It's not a big spigot. It's a yard hydrant type thing, which would be drained in the winter type thing because of freezing and thawing issues with that. But it would be accessible during lawn events for those.
Okay, and for Brian, I know that your parking is going to allow the farmers, people going to the farmers market to park in that lot. If there isn't other parking available, if I'm not mistaken, that's part of the parking plan, and also your letter to the board stated that. Now, I also know that you committed to promote the farmers market over 10 years, I think, or so. Was that the time frame?
I don't actually think we provided a time frame where we'll work with the farmers market and help promote it so that. more
Okay,
people know
well,
about it.
whatever that time frame might be in that amount, can that also be noted in the promotional material? That people will have access to that lot and they won't be driving around trying to find a space?
So
Because today was fairly crowded over there.
Yeah, so just to clarify, as we talked about the parking management plan, the intent was to constrain the parking for the building on that site so that the parking around on the street is still available for those on the for the farmers market or other events on campus or in Arlington. The intent is not to restrict parking so that it's only for the facility, but similar to how we've talked about assessing it over time, I think we need to just also assess whether the activity of the farmers market is overwhelming as such that we can't operate the building well. And so because we don't know, I think it's something we would be willing to continue to assess. And as long as it's still leaving parking for activity of the facility, we would leave it open to the farmers market and other people.
Okay, that seems to be a bit of a change here, but I was, when I drove by today, there were cars parking on the lawn because all of the parking along Raymond and elsewhere was taken up. So that's why I had asked about that, and that was the commitment from VASA.
Maybe we miscommunicated. Again, I think the parking management plan was always to keep the site parking on the site, but not restrict it to just the building.
Right. So
as long as we
could be
can.
used by
As long as there's
people-
space available. Correct.
Right, including if there's a valet service in place at the time, they can take advantage of that.
That's right. As long as the activity doesn't overwhelm the spaces such that we can operate the building as well. Right? I mean, there's a balance in there to make sure that we can still have the guests of the property be able to access it as well.
Okay.
And I believe there's a reporting mechanism built in that
That's right.
you'll take daily numbers and such and create a report to the town on a
That's
regular
right.
basis. I think it was a monthly basis or something like that.
Yeah, this is built into the parking management plan that your consultants reviewed. So, the specific details in there to go back and also, revisit that over time to make sure that it's working and operating as we thought.
Right. Now, that much was clear to me that there would be a review period, but I specifically asked about having those spaces available to the farmers market, and the answer was indifferent.
If we miscommunicated, I apologize. The intent was always, as I mentioned, to have it available, but not restricted as long as we can.
Okay. Anything else, Rocco?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Right. Joan, yours comments?
Comment. The applicant had previously indicated its intent to put the parcel on the tax roll so that it would be taxable. Can you talk about the next steps to accomplish that in conjunction with your application?
Yeah, we're working with the town assessor on that and how appropriately to do it. This is in support of Vassar's mission, so there may be a portion of that which is tax exempt, but the rest of it is intended to be on the tax rolls and assessed by the assessor as any other building would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Ben?
I have no comment at this time.
We've seen it for 3 years, so we've commented a lot. Bob?
Nothing from me.
All right. My final thoughts, I guess, is I do think that project improvements are, a lot of the improvements they've come forward with, and in perpetuity lawn has helped sway me. I think that's a response to a lot of the neighbors' comments. And especially the street improvements. You fixed the light spillage issue. And I think the traffic calming will help the neighborhood. Change is always difficult everywhere. But we abide by the town board zoning decision. We have to follow that, and the master plan as well. Which, there's concerns that Vassar could come forward with other projects for this lawn and take up more space on there as well. So this one at least guarantees over 2/3 of it to be preserved, and mostly and all the trees along Raymond Avenue as well.
I move the planning board adopt the attached resolution granting conditional special use permit approval and conditional site plan approval subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness included but not limited to the following 1 through 14.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
Nay.
2 nays. Motion passes 4-2.
Thank you.
I think Vassar definitely is. I mean, they're a good neighbor. They're reaching out to the community here. I think they're making good strides. Yeah. So let's move forward with the architectural review at this time, if you're prepared.
Thank you. Yes, we are. This one will be done via Zoom presentation.
You should share your screen and we should be able to see it in the Zoom and on the monitors as well. Yep, there we go.
Great. Hi, I'm Betsy Bradley, the president of Vassar, and thank you so much for giving us this extra time to talk about the architecture. I'm just going to begin and then turn it over to Fred Fisher. But I wanted to start by introducing who Fred Fisher is and why this architect. So if you could go to the next slide. So Fred Fisher and partners have extensive experience since 1981, so long time, with academic institutions such as Vassar, Princeton, Colby College, Caltech, Rollins College, University of Southern California. You can see all of these, and cultural institutions like the Getty Museum, really top flight institutions that Vassar likes to think of itself as part of. So excited about that experience. In addition, they are nationally and internationally recognized. I've listed the awards that they've received here, which I know if we're not architects, we may not be really aware of what does this mean, but these are really the highest awards people can get in this field, like the AIA Los Angeles Chapter Gold Medal in 2013, or the American Academy Rome Prize Fellowship in 2008, highly, highly competitive, showing great reputation. Fred Fisher and partners have also shown leadership in the field of architecture right now by being on boards of key architectural and art and design institutions that I've listed there: Otis College, UCLA, and USC School of Architecture. And something that really attracted Vassar to this group is their leadership in sustainability. They have a full living building challenge certification, which is above a gold, above the gold LEED standard. It's the really most sustainable you can possibly be, through their Santa Monica City Services building. And now that building is the most sustainable public building in the country. And they're using those same kinds of tools for the Inman Institute. And then last, I just wanted to show you a couple of pictures of the types of things they've done. So that first one is at Princeton University Firestone Library, which they have really renovated the interior and created a beautiful area inside that's quite modern looking to this iconic library building on the Princeton campus. Or Colby College, you can see the glass and how it sort of disappears into the sky. They designed that Museum of Art. Or next to it, Sunnyland Center and Gardens, or the Hillstone restaurants at the bottom, showing that their experience in really making something look hospitable and being hospitable. The Los Angeles Natural History Museum, where they designed that wing. Really, these are top flight buildings in our country. And then I already talked about the Santa Monica City Services building. So that's some background of what we're hoping to bring to Poughkeepsie, this kind of expertise and sensitivity in architecture. And Fred, do you want to talk more about it?
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Betsy.
thank you.
And thank you to the board for letting me speak directly and in person. Feels great to be in a room in person with people that you're trying to communicate with. I actually took the admissions tour of Vassar College today and been to the campus a number of times, and it reminded me of the beauty, real exceptional beauty of the Vassar campus. And that beauty in part comes from the diversity of expression on the campus. It's 160 years of this private institution has shepherded this campus to the state it's in now. Which leads me to where the architecture of the building comes from. It comes from three principles. Number one, our work is derived from the mission of the Institute. That was actually mentioned in one of the comments before. So the mission of the Institute is to convene about the issues of today from the liberal arts perspective in the pastoral setting of the lawn as envisioned by the creators of Alumni House. That site was very specifically chosen as this edge of the campus. It is, should be emphasized, the site is on the Vassar campus. So Alumni House was put on that site so that it would have this pastoral setting be just separate from the main part of the campus. And the Institute, as an extension and expansion of this notion of what Alumni House was, will share that site. And in fact, one of the most important principles of preservation is to activate the buildings. And this will help activate and extend the life of Alumni House. Number two, relating to the heterogeneous 160-year context of the Vassar campus. The Vassar campus is the primary context of this building. It includes the Alumni House and the main building, and buildings of the modern era. So starting with the Marcel Breuer building, the Saarinen building, Caesar Pelli, Hardy, Holtzman, Pfeiffer, Enniad. Vassar has produced exceptional buildings throughout of the period appropriate throughout its history. And third, the building should express function. It's a very basic principle of modern architecture. So what is the function of the Institute? It's actually two things. And the looking forward, looking back, again, was mentioned before. As a fellow of the American Academy in Rome, the god Janus is the symbol of the American Academy. The god Janus looked back and looked forward. And that's exactly what this building is doing. It's respecting the history of the campus, looking back with an iconic federal style shaped in wing, and then looking forward to a modern, low profile building that will be subsidiary to the Alumni House and the surrounding area. There are 5- and 6-story dormitories across the street. We chose to make this building as compact as possible out of respect for the site. The functions, and also Matt can go into detail when we get to it, but as was said, this building is built for the very highest levels of sustainability. And in particular, no combustion. This is the state of the art of how restaurants are run. And this will be a demonstration in support of that aspect of Vassar's mission. So to go through the slides, this image here really is sums up the essence of the design. You see on the left-hand side, a domestic shaped building derived from the federal style architectures, Clinton House, other things, and quite a number of the buildings, this iconic gable form, which refers to history, but also refers to domesticity. This is a place of dwelling, and to the residential neighborhood. And on the right-hand side, the lower profile wing, compact 2-story wing, clad in glass, which will, as the slide that Betsy showed at the Colby Museum, to visually dissolve this building into the landscape. When you look at it, you will see reflections of the sky, reflections of the trees, reflections of nature. And then the center is the glass entry. I've actually, the Oberlin Inn was mentioned. I'm a graduate of Oberlin. I have been to the new Oberlin Inn. It's a success. It actually does, in fact, border a residential neighborhood. It's a very similar site on the cusp of a green space, the college, commercial space, and a residential space. And the lobby of that inn has become the town living room. That's the same intent in here. As you, the pathway, this is the existing orientation of the pathway. You see you're heading right toward Alumni House. There will be an accessible path that will switch back up the hill to make it a comfortable walk up directly from this access up the hill. And you see the way the two wings of the building frame Alumni House and celebrate it as one of the most iconic buildings on the Vassar campus. Next. Moving around on Raymond Avenue toward the north, nature. We love nature. Frank Lloyd Wright's quote resonated with me. Our work is always embracing nature. There's a reason why this building is sited on this site, to immerse this activity in that pastoral setting while preserving the majority of it. So the restaurant will have indoor-outdoor dining, and you can see in this rendering how we've expressed this notion of the reflectivity of the glass will essentially dissolve the portion of the building into the reflections of the trees in the sky. Next. So going around, basically when you're at the top of the hill at Alumni House, looking back toward the entry on the left and the in wing of the building, it is one building. We heard comments from you and others about that wing of the building. We've made significant changes, putting these dormers on the building. We'll talk later about the subdivision of the windows, horizontal brick course similar to that one on Alumni House. So this building has been dialed in more specifically to relate to the campus and to Alumni House in particular. Next. The materials, the building is built with 100% recycled material brick. As you know, the Vassar campus has many brick buildings. Thank you.
We'll find out. You might want to keep your hands on that. Maybe, yeah, let's set it. Yeah, that might be better.
So you see the brick at the top. It's one of the predominant materials on the Vassar campus, and that's part of this the domesticity that we're getting at with the building, and also a part of its reference to history. So then the upper part of the building, the glass, the frit is a ceramic material that's fired onto the glass. This is important for reducing the heat impact of the sun in achieving the sustainability goals. And also, if you look closely at this pattern, and people in the institute and close to the building will see this, that pattern that you see, we created, is derived from the half timbering pattern of Alumni House. So the formal DNA of Alumni House is brought into our building in a number of different ways. Next. So then going around on the,
which is that ceramic material, and you mentioned the surround the top. Is that
These are the two 30% pattern and 60% pattern, which is culture in the cradle, which is baked on the glass in the layers, and natural pattern derived from timber. I have a slide later on to show that.
Okay.
This is the base glass.
Okay.
Same glass makeup, there's the cut pattern there. So just going on the board, so these are the two metals for the windows.
I want to bring the microphone.
Dark metal. Really the masonry is 100% recycled content brick. It's green brick. That's called a. Thank you. Hopefully I was projecting enough that they could hear the mics. Thank you. It's kind of heavy, and clearly we have some technical issues. So these are the pavers. So yeah, this is the brick for the Institute base, and the in, of course, it's called a blade cut because it has a lot of texture, and it also has a coating that makes it reflective in kind of a high angle light. So we feel this is a very beautiful material as you see it full scale. The dark mortar that will be in between the brick, and this is the metal roof of the inn. These four are landscape pavers that are abutting the building in different patterns. The entries are a natural Belgian bluestone, which you see here, the vestibules as you go into the inn from both sides, and the restaurant. And so that's basically it. It's a fairly simple palette, but using as much natural material as possible, and really trying to join the two sides of the building, with the base being the brick kind of tying into the inn. So we do see it as one palette for both buildings, even though the expression is fairly, the forms are very different.
Okay, great.
I'll put this
Sorry to
down.
interrupt you. I just wanted to see
Thank you.
what some of those materials are.
The color of the palette that we've chosen was done explicitly because we have found that the dark colored buildings visually blend into landscape much better than light colored buildings. And we also want to complement by contrast the Alumni House. Alumni House is very light colored, and our building is dark colored, and so it will actually visually help the alumni house, come forward as this building will kind of merge into the landscape. From this elevation, you can see the domestic forms, the small scale dormer gables. Most of that metal roof is covered with solar collectors. These are south facing. This is producing energy for the building. And going around the campus this morning, I'm reminded there are many buildings that have this kind of metal roof on it. It does really relate to campus buildings. Thanks. So the dormer form, we thought that was like very important to have this iconic Clinton House, a colonial era building. This form says domesticity to it. It also says history or history of American architecture. So you can see the very close similarity of our design, which came directly from these precedents in the region and on the campus itself. Then the detail of adding the gabled dormers, the same, again, directly derived from Alumni House. You see the strong horizontal course of masonry visually giving a shadow line like it is on Alumni House. The subdivision of the windows also comes from those at Alumni House. Next. And then the sustainable. Matt's going to go into those in a little bit more detail because there are many. In order to achieve this level of sustainability, you have to attack it in many different ways.
Would it be helpful if we pass any of these around?
Not sure we need to.
You want to just put it back down on the table? Obviously, we'll
Watch the edge there.
watch the
edge. Two pieces.
You got
Two pieces might fall.
there you go.
As was mentioned by some on the chat earlier, I think one of the things about the architectural design is we have tried to be mission driven for Vassar, and sustainability we see as, we bring this into the architectural review because we see it as core to how we design the building. So we listed the four main categories: passive strategies, sustainable materials, energy efficient design, and zero fossil fuels. So we have a diagram that kind of tries to capture most of these systems. Just to give you an overview, starting from kind of probably the most significant commitment is the zero fossil fuels, so zero carbon emission in the inn. So that is supplemented by a geothermal field that you can see, which supplements the heating and cooling. And we have the solar PV on the inn, so energy generating photovoltaic. And then the restaurant has a hot water system that's a separate solar hot water as well. So we kind of tried to pull energy from all means possible to supplement the energy use. There's a lot here, so I don't have to go into all of it. Some of it was mentioned by Micah from Vassar on the call, but the electrical charging stations in the parking lot, the 100% recycled brick. It's a post-industrial content brick. It's a fairly innovative development. It's not a very common product. Let's see if I missed anything here. A lot of the hotel management commitments are low temperature laundry, guest room energy, the pod coffee, stuff that is kind of trying to reduce waste in the inn. It's very important. And then the fire retention swales, some stormwater management practices were mentioned as well. And then the use of salvage material, of course, which we are doing from the Williams roof and a couple other components.
One of the things worth noting that's a little bit different about this is the kitchen burns no fossil fuels. All of the cooking will be done through electric, which is kind of unusual in that kind of kitchen environment.
And so part of that energy reduction strategy is this glazing idea. So as we mentioned, the we're kind of demonstrating the timbering from Alumni House and how that was used to make an abstract pattern of the ceramic brick. And so that reduces the solar gain on the Institute at the same time. So this is a bit of a blow up to give you a sense of the full scale. What you're seeing in that rendering, which we haven't really zoomed into to show you before, is why you're seeing different kind of whites and grays creating a rhythm across that facade, and that is the two different densities of brick. There's also solid wall behind some of the glass and just vision through others. So as you move across the facade, you can see that there's just two glass types and either solid or vision, and that's also what creates the pattern. So there's we call it a shadow box, which is basically just metal backing a couple inches behind the glass, and that's your solid portion. And so you're getting a mix of those four types across the facade. That's clear.
So moving back around to the north, this is the view from College View of the north end of Raymond Avenue, the traffic circle, looking at the closer to the Institute portion with the restaurant, indoor, outdoor on the lower level, then the convening portion of this above, reflecting the sky, reflecting the trees, and in the background to see the in wing with that reference to the residential neighborhood.
And I think this image also demonstrates the solid and void patterning pretty well. So the corners are all vision glass, and then you get moments of solid wall, and then vision, and then solid, and some slits of vision as needed for the Institute kind of display screens beyond.
The glass is actually also in support of this notion, the ethos of transparency, academic transparency, which is part of the liberal arts philosophy. And so that's why one of the reasons why we saw glass is appropriate, and it does literally invite you visually in to participate. At night, it'll be like a lantern. You'll see this the light that goes on inside the building. You'll see the light that goes on inside the restaurant. It's kind of gives kind of an inviting feeling. And then moving back up to the north end of the lawn, I agree with all the comments about nature. We love nature. We feel this is the ideal setting for this convening, is to be in a natural setting and to enjoy that, share the community. I walked by the market today. All of that can be exactly as it is right now, just the way we sited the inn Institute down at the south end of the site.
And then back to the main.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the presentation.
Happy to answer any questions.
Good to see the materials. More detailed explanation that we've seen before. This is up for architectural review. Comments from anyone on the board? From architecture standpoint.
I've commented in the past, it's not a design that I would pick. I'm an architect. I don't think it blends in well with the community. I think it's a little cold and static in some places, but like I said, I'm not an architect, and that's just my input.
I think it's the way you tied it in with the different features from Alumni House and other things, but kept it modern. I mean, modern's not everybody's cup of tea, as you know. But walking around the Vassar campus, this is all the institutional zone, and that's the district that the architecture is matching, and just walking around even the Arlington neighborhood district, there's a lot of various different types of architectures. So it's a mix. I think it looks nice myself. Again, I'm not an architect either.
Okay, so you've heard my comments here in the past. I have kind of a mixed view, but that's not my question is kind of out of left field here. I noticed that Alumni House kind of features very at least a major feature of the design. You made room between the inn and the conference center to make sure that you could see the alumni house, which I think I like that aspect of it. And you seem to incorporate a lot of the aspects or the features of alumni house in both the material used as well as in the design of the various structure. So this comment is more to Vassar, I believe, or question. Now, since this features, I don't know if prominently is really the right word, but what are the plans, or is the alumni house on any historical record? And what are the plans to preserve it so that it stays as part of the architecture and not just a fleeting moment here where it looks great and then at some point it's going to go away?
So it's not on any registry. I will tell you though that as you've seen, it's a big part of this project and it's an important part for Vassar. And as we've gone through on this process, we've actually gotten gifts that will support renewal of.
Oh, they're on now.
Yeah, but that's a nice word, but they're not. I mean, is being featured here as part of the architecture. It's not. You didn't block it out and say that this is art, and you incorporated it. I think you owe the community at least to put it on some type of historical record. That's my view, because it is part of the architecture. That makes it more attractive to me. The fact that it's there and it is featured, and you spoke very eloquently about it as well.
Yeah, that notch is a nice view of the alumni house.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You're coming
you
off
put it as part of the design.
right.
I mean, you featured it there specifically. So I think, yeah, anybody's willing to answer from Vassar.
If I could just add, can you hear this from the, yeah, if I could just add, Alumni House is absolutely critical to the whole project because it has extra rooms and it has extra convening space and it has, you can cater in that kitchen. So actually a lot of the events are going to use all three of these buildings and they really talk to each other. There's nice, I don't know if you showed the pathway from the hotel up to Alumni House. So there's no way that Alumni House is going anywhere. And as Brian just said, we have donors who constantly give us adequate resources to upgrade, to preserve, et cetera. In fact, as we started to fundraise for this, people said, yeah, we'll do that, but Alumni House too. So it really is all one project, the way we think of it, with the same function. I don't know if that helps at all, but
Well,
it's a big
you know,
commitment.
Again, they're nice words, and
Yeah.
with all due respect, I mean, I don't know that you'll be here for that many years. So I think it would be appropriate to memorialize it as part of the architecture design, especially since you spent so much time and effort to make it part of the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
You've made a very good point, and I'll definitely consider it and bring it to our board. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Rocco. Anyone else have comments? I think it's when you see the renderings in the plan, you do see it is set way back, so you are preserving that whole frontage along the long rim of boundary there. And, so it's not right up in your face that way. So I think it'll be a nice look. Ben, anything? Nope. All right. With that, I move we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Have somebody out there. We'll do.
Science building, there's a lot of security questions going bird space and the windows. This, you see the lovely clouds reflected. I was wondering if that's been discussed at all.
Thanks, Carol, for bringing it up. I will bring it up as well. I mean, sometimes there's fake owls and things that if you've considered any of this.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, on the Fertiglass
Yeah, there's a lot of studies on kind of what you need to do to prevent birds from striking a 2x4 grid or something like a ceramic grid. So the grid, birds can see. So they that entire upper bird is safe. The lower glass is more in shadow. It does not have the grid, but we felt like the upper portion was the piece that needed the most.
The upper overhangs it a little bit, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
right,
that's-
relax.
All right, thanks for bringing it to light, Carol. Let's see, motion, I made a motion. Was it
Second.
Seconded. Call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 5-0, 5-1, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol, do you want them to put that over on the table on the side maybe for now? Yeah.
Carol just
if
throw it
you
over her
would.
shoulder.
Thank you.
Put that pass back to Carol. Carol, please. Right, next up is the Children's Home of Poughkeepsie. Is someone here for that tonight? All right, come on. Patiently waiting. I see we have Chairman Emeritus John Weissman visiting us tonight. So welcome.
You guys stop by and sit.
All right, let's describe what you're trying to do here.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Kyle Bardwell from the Chazen Companies. I'm a project engineer here representing our applicant, the Children's Home in Poughkeepsie. I have Kimberly Ryan from LMV Architecture with us. And we also have Walter Joseph from Children's Home, who is attending on Zoom tonight.
Okay, great.
So on behalf of our applicant, the Children's Home Poughkeepsie, they're looking to install a modular learning center. It's a one-story modular center that they're putting on their campus now. Along with the modular learning center, we will be installing a fire truck turnaround for emergency apparatus vehicles. Because of the heavy agenda tonight, I wanted to keep it brief and leave most of my time open to comments from the public and from the planning board. I think that would be best for our time here. So with that, I would like to open up to any questions from the board.
All right, thanks. We'll get to that. And go around to see Kristen, Mr. Yours.
Yep, so what am I doing here? Thank you for the brief overview. So the project's on for seeker review, site plan review, and architectural review. In your recommendation packet, you have a number of comments from primarily planning and engineering staff. It is an unlisted action subject to an uncoordinated review. Staff is encouraging the board to discuss the application and consider moving ahead with a conditional approval tonight, despite the number of comments that are before you from staff, largely because I believe the Children's Home is actually subject to some state or federal or other funding that's coming in. So they're sort of on a time crunch to get things moving. Of course, that means the town will still be performing its due diligence and making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So with that said, there is a draft negative declaration before you for consideration as well. So it would be on for public hearing, seeker resolution, consideration, adoption of a conditional amended site plan approval, and architectural review. I know that the board did have some specific questions about possibly the programming and getting that modular onto the site and where it might be coming from. So anything you might be able to provide by way of background that might be helpful to the discussion before you go to the board for conversation, just to keep things moving.
Sure, I can speak about the structure itself. It's going to be coming in 3 pieces, and It's currently erected in Connecticut, in Middletown, at a school. And their lease is up with that, and this building became available readily, right at the right time, that the children's home needed something of similar size. So it's going to be moved over here from Connecticut. They are going to be providing us updated New York State engineering documents so that we will have the appropriate codes compliant. Even though it was in Connecticut, it'll be compliant for New York. It'll also be installed on frost protected footings. So those will be erected for the building prior to its arrival. The sections are approximately 13'9" by 68 feet long, and they will be brought in via truck. They're wheeled so that they will be, rather than being brought on a trailer, they actually are portable themselves. They're wheeled over and then they're set on the foundation. There's some photographs on the right-hand side of the building there. Those are photos of the existing building that is being relocated. Those aren't just sample photos. So we're just showing there, what it will look like when it's all put together. Very low slope roof, wood siding, very simple structure. It'll be used at this time for the proposing for this program, a 3-year period. Not to say that the building will leave immediately after that. We don't know what the program will entail after this term is up. I believe Walter might be on Zoom. He can talk a little bit more about the programming that will occur inside the building.
Sure. So we are adding this space because we do not have any large undesignated space to use as learning space for the children who are coming through the campus now. We are providing services under a federal grant. So we're in the 3rd year of a 3-year grant. We expect to have that renewed in November. And we are providing services to undocumented children as we did, or actually in 2014, 2015 as well at a different site. That program has an educational requirement that has to be fulfilled by us as the grantee. These kids don't attend a local school, so they are getting some acculturation activity on our campus. And certain topics have to be addressed by our staff for these youngsters to get them ready to move to their ultimate destinations. So that's what the daytime space will be. In the evening, it'll probably be used as multi-use space, activity space, recreation space.
Can I just ask, like, the ages of this? Is this an elementary type thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The ages of the students?
The ages of students are between 12 and 17 when they come to us.
Okay, thanks.
These units going to be, since they're on wheels, probably with axles, are they going to be on piers or a foundation?
They will be
and
on.
Are they going to be anchored?
Yes, they'll be on frost protected footings, which will be constructed prior to their arrival, and they will be tied down.
Okay.
There is an engineered plan that we will be getting New York State engineers approval, and we'll be submitting those to the building department prior to their arrival.
Okay.
Right. Let me speak on engineering department. Don, you have any comments on this? No. Right. Sounds like they're prepping for the thing. So let me go first. It's a public hearing. So I move we open the public hearing for this project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Anyone on the Zoom call or in the audience tonight that wishes to comment on this project? Hit *6 to unmute your phone or raise your hand on Zoom chat.
And if you're on the Zoom, you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand by using the function on the Zoom.
Scroll through one more time here.
Yeah, scroll.
Seeing none, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Great. Let's jump around the board a little more. Ben, did you have any further comments?
No, that was it for now.
Bob?
No question.
Nicole?
Can you tell me where the handicap spaces are on your plan?
Sure. So with the first submission that we made, we did not show a handicap space.
Okay.
We received comments from the board to show handicap space. So in our next submission, we'll be making revisions to show a handicap spot and a route to the ADA accessible ramp that goes up to the modular.
Yeah, I see the ramp there. So I was just wondering from there where your spaces were.
Exactly. So we were just going to take a look at it and looking at the grading to make sure that it'd be obviously a pathway that's less than 5%, meets all the ADA requirements on that.
Okay. And I just wanted to reiterate a comment from the water department that your backflow is overdue at your master meter pit. You might have seen that comment. So you just have to get that tested and give the certificate to the water department.
Correct. Yeah, I think they're actually involved in running that test in
Okay.
the upcoming days, or they might have yesterday.
All right, great.
Anything, Rocco?
Just a quick thing. I'm not sure if I should ask Don, Kristen this. In review of the plans, did you see, do you have enough information regarding how they're going to be anchored and all that? Are you comfortable with that? Or haven't you seen anything?
That goes to the building department.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes to them. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
And Joe?
Just a quick question. Did you say, I don't know if I heard you correctly, that you expect to use this space for 3 years? Is that it?
I
Or was I
think-
misunderstanding?
No, let me, I can answer that. The federal grant cycle is a 3-year cycle. So we are in the 3rd year of that first grant. So we could conceivably use it for another 3 years. Yes.
Okay, but the intent isn't to discontinue it in 3 years. You would have use for it afterwards, I presume?
We could, yes.
Thank you.
Or resell it, I suppose, if they don't need it anymore.
I do
Right.
have a copy of the anchor plan with me if anybody cares to take a peek at it.
We'll just take that as part of your next submission.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the appropriate staff will review it.
Yeah,
and-
the full packet kind of shows all the details of how to do it, although this will be updated for New York State. I have the Connecticut set with
Yeah, the
me.
building department,
Thank
take a look at that
Yes.
carefully.
Mhm.
So, yep, I'm good.
Okay. I move the planning board hereby determine that the children's home of Poughkeepsie Modular Learning Center would not have significant adverse impact on the environment. That no environmental impact statement will be required for the reasons set forth in the seeker negative declaration for an unlisted action dated August 19, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded for secret. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for children's home of Poughkeepsie Modular Learning Center, subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, and said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness inclusive of, not limited to, the following 1 through 9.
Second.
Moved and seconded for conditional. Called the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And I believe you've already presented architecture. Anybody have any comments on that? Photos of the actual building. I move we accept architecture as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Good to go. Good luck in getting the building moved over here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Work with Kristen and the department to get all your conditions met. At Home Store, shops at South Hills. Ken?
Good evening.
Didn't think you were hanging around for no reason.
No, only 2 tonight. So Robert Moat from At Home is he's going to do the presentation tonight.
Okay.
So he'll take over down
All right.
here in case you have
Been here once before. Let's see what we've got to come back with.
Robert, you there?
I am. I'm trying to share my screen real quick.
All right. We have it. That's good.
Okay. All right, so this is the area in question. Obviously, the At Home Store is in this location. I know I was on the last hearing our entry is basically right at the top of this red box, with our main parking out front shared with Hobby Lobby as well as a pet store. And we're trying to get additional parking over in the area that says project area. Just a satellite view. One of the things I wanted to talk about representing Home at Home is that there was a lot of discussion about the at-home pickup area. Our at-home pickup area is really for some of the larger things that we sell in our stores. That would be like large patio furniture and mattresses and larger furniture, but we also sell a lot of other stuff that is relatively bulky that customers won't go to the pickup area. They'll be transporting that in shopping carts out to their store, or out to their car, I should say, and loading it, from the shopping cart into their trunks. Those are like end tables, various other things throughout the store that we sell, large decor items, things like that. So it's not really an area where a bunch of people are excuse me, are using it all the time. It's really for those large items. I know there was a question at one point on the ADA parking location. So the ADA parking location, the reason that we located it around the corner was because of the concerns with the slope out in front of the store, in the front area of the building. So that's why we located the ADA parking on the side, with access to our entry right around the corner.
As long as the building department approves that placement.
It is already approved. Question was on employee parking. The anticipated employee parking would be, pretty far away from the building, out in the remote parking area to the right. Showed where the square is. Okay, and so we spent a lot of time coming up with a parking study, which we had done a while back, and we were able to pull the information on a few stores in the New York area. And this is the customer count at the different times during the store. So what you'll see is in a few of the stores, we get 77 customers, but we have some stores where we are getting over 100 customers at certain times throughout the day. And it's distributed a little bit differently in each store, but you can see that in a lot of cases, our prime time hours sometimes are actually more in the middle of the day than they are towards the evening. So with this distribution, we have a few plans here that Ken was kind enough to help us with, showing some of these stores. So our store in Albany has 154 dedicated parking spaces, which is within 300 feet of the store entry, and you can see the distribution of that. Albany was the least busy of the stores, having up to 75 customers. 75 customers parking, at one time and at the busiest time of the day. It was on the lower end of the spectrum. Middletown. Middletown was on the higher end of the spectrum, and Middletown has 320 dedicated parking spaces within 300 feet of the entry of the store, and it had close to 90 spaces being taken, at peak times. And Nanuet, which was our highest volume store, had over 100 parking spaces taken, and Nanuet has 289 dedicated parking spaces within 300 feet of the store, with 100 of them being taken, at the peak times of the store opening. So that brings us to Poughkeepsie. In Poughkeepsie, we have 71 dedicated parking spaces within 300 feet of the store. With what we're proposing to do, would bring 44 more spaces into it, bringing it up to 115 spaces, which would which would make us have the volume of parking within 300 feet of the store to make it like our other stores, giving us the best opportunity for our customers to park like they do in other at-home stores and not disrupt our business. So this is just a slide showing, basically I read that as we went through the slides so that you could see with the stores that we have that are like stores in New York, and we expect Poughkeepsie to be a higher volume store in New York. We have 71 dedicated parking spaces with what we feel is the need for over 100 in that area for, just to satisfy our customers during our peak traffic times.
All right, appreciate you doing that study. Else here?
I think we're fine there. That was just some of the other stuff that we had talked about before about square footage, where landscape stuff was, but
okay,
nothing's really changed substantively in that area other than with the cart access that Kristen brought up, and she brings up another good point in her comment all about adding a second one, at least in that area. So we'll work on.
We're going to make sure the carts stay put in Poughkeepsie. And I think we have the quarter we need in Poughkeepsie carts. So. And that everything gets pedestrian people along without being in the middle of the road there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me join Kristen for her comments.
I thought you were doing a great job. So, so the application's on for seeker review and amended site plan review. You have, reviewed this application before. The intent was to have At Home go back and bring us some numbers, so you would have something or some context to work with as you evaluate this decision or discussion for approval or not. And again, I would just offer the information out for you to discuss that as a board while you make your determination. It's on for public hearing, so you'll go through that. There is, if the board chooses to act on it, a seeker negative declaration prepared in draft format for your consideration, and also the potential adoption of an amended site plan approval. At this point, if the board were to choose to move forward and permit the additional parking, of course, planning and engineering and other staff would be taking a hard look at a resubmission. We want to make sure that any circulation issues are addressed, landscaping. Again, Ken pointed out the accessibility via crosswalk, but also for carts. Our zoning code does dictate that carts should not be floating around the parking lot. So, of course, if you're going to be encouraging your patrons to park over in this new lot area, we'll have to make sure that that's memorialized on the plan. So, and the only other comment that has come up a couple of times was about lighting. I don't know if there's going to be any changes to lighting in this area or proposed lighting, just because you are now encouraging folks to cross into an area that wasn't previously paved or lit at a pedestrian level. So anyway.
It wasn't lit in the sense where there wasn't specific parking poles on the inside of that, but their poles are right down the drive aisle where there was an existing walk that remains. So that whole area is pretty lit from what it is now. And because that's a major intersection and a major walking path, so it was lit pretty well from before. So we had not proposed to add any lighting to that area. We can look at
I don't know that the board necessarily was going to ask you for that. I think we're just looking for clarification on the site plan. So
yeah, we'll make,
we'll
no
go there.
problem.
Yeah.
Make sure it's lit enough to be safe. Not
right.
Overly so.
Correct.
All right. Thanks, Kristen. Don, do you have anything else?
Not much. We had one spot where we were looking for another pedestrian connection, but that's it.
All right, sounds good. This is on for a public hearing, so I move we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anyone on the call that wishes to comment on this project tonight? Raise your hand on Zoom or unmute yourself and speak away. We have one in the audience here, which is the comment.
Should
Come
we
on up,
ask Rob
John.
to stop sharing?
Oh, yeah, Rob is.
Rob, can
Oh,
you
go
stop
ahead.
sharing the
Right,
screen?
Rob.
Thank
There we
you.
go. Check the microphones on there.
I think it is.
State your name, please, clearly for the record.
For the record, John Wiseman, 1 Burkdale Court, Poughkeepsie. Hi, y'all. I want to say hello. I will say that in Florida, we have a at home nearby, and he exactly described the situation with respect to the way the loading is done. In a dedicated area, there's always people out there to help the customers and so on. So it's a good way to do it, and it's well received, and it's out of people's way, so it doesn't impede traffic going in and out of the store and so on. So, well said, Ken.
Okay, so
I had to say something. What the heck?
So-
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Mr.
So,
Gonzalez.
so off to the side, that kind of helps the situation, it sounds like.
Okay, is there anyone else on the Zoom who wishes to comment on this? Raise your hand, unmute yourself, wave. No one's even got their camera on, so waving won't work. I think we're,
Seeing
we're
none,
okay.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Go around the board for comments. Start with Jones.
I think it's a good plan. I appreciate the supporting parking information, and I think it would benefit the project overall.
All right, Rocco.
I agree with that.
Nicole?
I have no comments.
Bob?
No, I like the idea. And, good to see something going on in that end of the
Ben?
goes down.
Ben?
It's good, I'm okay.
Likewise, I appreciate that you've come up with the statistics here of, because we are concerned about adding extra pavement to this area. And with the overall mall, but it has the support we see of the mall owner as well.
Right.
And a good comment from the audience member here, so. With that. I see the construction, looks like it's going well over there, and everybody in the area is looking forward to shopping. So,
Yes.
go ahead.
I move that the planning board hereby determine that the at-home at shops at South Hills amended site plan 2 would not have significant adverse impact on the environment, and that no environmental impact statement will be required for the reasons set forth in the seeker negative declaration for unlisted action dated August 19th, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded for seeker. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional site plan approval for at-home store at the shops at South Hills amended site plan. Second, subject to the following, respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies. And said responses to be reviewed by planning department as to adequacy and completeness inclusive of but not limited to the following 1 through 6.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, everybody.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
We have some adjournments, South Hills Commons. I move we adjourn the public hearing to September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Actually 5-0 because Bob just got up. So
Yeah, step out. 5-0. Stewart Shop at 2245 South Road. I move that the planning board adjourn the public hearing to September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And Arlington Farms Malabar. I move the planning board adjourn the public hearing to September 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-1.
Mr.
Or
Chairman,
5-0, sorry.
may I interrupt just for 1 second, just to point out that our September planning board meeting will be on September 23rd, the 4th Thursday of September, not the 3rd Thursday. So the next planning board meeting will be held September 23rd.
Right, that's, we adjourned the all to 23rd. but-
Just in case.
Thanks for pointing that out. It's the
For the
fourth
public-
week. So everyone is on board with that. I also move now that we allow public comment on any other items on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call to question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Anyone out there wish to comment on any of the other agenda items tonight?
And if you're on the Zoom, please unmute yourself or raise your hand. If you want to make a comment on any other item on the agenda tonight.
Yes, I have a comment.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, this is Heinz.
Yeah, So yeah, I noticed on the short form environmental impact report on item 20,
Which
there
project?
was a notice that there had been remediation for hazardous waste, but the slot doesn't have any information in there.
What project is this for you, Heinz?
This is for the refueling depot.
Oh, okay.
First student, maybe, the Fitchett Way?
Yeah, this is the first student, Fitchett Way, right? Yeah, so I noticed on the short form environmental impact, item 20 was left blank, although they checked yes for having done hazardous waste remediation. So I think, before going forward with approval, you need to get that information because given the nature of that site and the proximity of residents as well as recreational areas and the waterway and various other things, we really need to know what the environmental impact was or could potentially be.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate you pointing that out, Heinz.
And I do
They have some other issues that will.
I do believe that comment is in our staff report.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
All right, great. Anyone else out there with a comment for agenda items tonight? Seeing none, I move we resume the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right. Next up is Hudson Heritage.
All right. Is
And
there, I don't know
I don't know if
anyone's on.
anyone's here to represent that, but Mike.
Yeah, I guess I'll be covering it. Is there anyone from Hudson Heritage and Saber on? Hello?
I see David.
Yeah, David's here, but I don't know if anyone's here.
I mean, I think this is fairly straightforward. but
Yeah,
Mike-
okay.
Mike,
Yeah,
go ahead.
so let me summarize then the, if you recall, back in April, the planning board approved modifications to the original conditions of the approval to allow for additional stores on lot 4 to open in addition to the grocery store. When we originally approved the project, it was contemplated that the grocery store may be, ready to open before the sewer district is formed. But as we've gone on, the sewer district formation process has taken longer than previously expected. In part, that's because of the fairly complicated map plan report that's associated with that has to do with the town portion of the sewer project. And so it's at the state, it's being reviewed by the state comptroller's office. They've asked some other questions. We've been responding. The town attorney has been responding. And so that process is ongoing. So again, in April, we allowed for the additional buildings on lot 4 to also potentially get COs prior to district formation. The request now is that it's a little different in that there's at least one of the buildings, the Chipotle Starbucks building on lot 3, that may be ready to open in the coming month or so, a month or two. There's also the CIA connection to, I should look this way a little bit too. I'm sorry, I always forget that. The CIA connection, which is being moved to into a new pipe that's under construction. So those connections will be going into what would be a shared sewer pipe that would typically require a transportation corporation or some other means of making sure that there is a responsible entity for the future maintenance of that shared line. And so we worked with David and with the applicant and with the Department of Health to come to an agreement about ensuring that Sabre would still own that line, the shared line, but that the town would be responsible for future maintenance. And Sabre would be providing security to cover the cost of that. So, and that's the basis of the request. So we're looking for basically the recommendation is to amend that condition of approval to allow for this additional connection.
Okay.
Did I get that right, David?
Yep.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. My internet was down. I had to try it on the phone. So sorry. Yes, that's exactly right. Well, the security agreement between us and Sabre, as well as a bonding agreement, will be amended prior to the county allowing the sewer to start. And so the town will have the security and protection that should Sabre not maintain or repair the line during the time, this interim time when the sewer district hasn't been formed, we will have money in place to use to do the repairs yourself.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, thanks, David. Go around the board for some comments. Start with Bob this time. No comment. Question? Nothing. Joel?
No comment.
Rocco? I'm good. Yeah, I think we're good. It's just an extension of what they had before, and the project's moving along up there. So
All right, I move the planning board amend condition number 4 of the preliminary and conditional final major subdivision plat approval dated July 16th, 2020, and condition number 3 of the amended conditional final major subdivision approval dated August 20th, 2020, as necessary to allow for additional users on lot 3 to receive COs prior to formation of the sewer improvement district, subject to the approval by the town board of all necessary agreements with the developer as described within the staff report, and authorization to operate the shared sewer line by the Dutchess County Department of Behavioral and Community Health.
second. Moved and seconded. All that. Called the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Okay, thanks. You can tell the lawyer didn't write that resolution, so it was short.
It just looked like it.
It's all right. I know. Whenever you see my name on it, right?
Thanks, Dave.
Good night, guys. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
All right, next up, we have Adams Fair Farms lot line revision. Is there anyone on the call representing them? Marcel,
Yes, I'm here.
representing Adams, you have anything to briefly say about this? It looks fairly straightforward.
I've reviewed the comments from the town engineer, and we certainly are sensitive to the fact that the right-of-way, which was granted, doesn't necessarily reflect the location of the driveway. So we would propose to have that corrected. They've also asked for a site plan that shows the existing septic fields that service the home in question. We believe that we may have one. We've looked through our files and haven't been able to locate it, but unfortunately the owners have plans and drawings in like 5 different locations. So that search continues. Otherwise, there is a discrepancy as to the physical address. Mail is currently being delivered to 771 Dutchess Turnpike. I know Kristen indicated that she had found records that showed it as being 769. We will get to the bottom of that when we file the new deeds with the county.
Yeah, make sure that the E911 knows what the address is.
Right. Now, when we did obtain the notice of sale or transfer of ownership, it was referred to as 771 Dutchess Turnpike. But I know that when all the numbers were changed many years ago, that there were some issues.
All right, thanks. There's a long history of the property out there. So
yeah.
Kristen, anything further?
Just that it would be on for a seeker resolution, which it is a type 2 action. There are some standard notes that are in our code that we ask get put on the plan, and just making the applicant aware that there's sort of a clock that starts essentially once this conditional approval is had. So you'll have 60 days to get the paperwork and information in order for filing. There is the ability to extend that. We do have some time extensions built into our code that we'd be able to, if we had to go that route, we would. Fairly straightforward. So
I would ask that maybe we could go ahead and look at that extension only because I'm away for the next 6 weeks, starting September 15th. I'm gone until the end of October.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'd have the time to get everything in place prior to that.
if that's something the board
Could we
would,
give an extension to that?
if that's something that the board
Necessary.
would deem appropriate, and you're all in agreement for it, I would just keep it generic at this time possibly, because I don't have the explicit language for a resolution for you. But I would just state that, per town code time extension as it relates to a lot line revision, we grant the maximum time extension allowable. How was that?
Sounds good to-
Works for me.
Yeah, it is vacation season and stuff, so we'll do that. And it sounds like he's already addressing your concern of the driveway.
Yes, yep. And of course, we'll have to square up the detail about the address, but we can make that happen during this time of review.
All right, thanks. Let's go on board for comments. Nicole?
No comment.
Rocco?
No comment.
Joe?
Nothing. Thank you.
Ben had to step out. Bob? No comment. Same here. Looks good to correct something so the pool's not split in half between two lots. So go ahead.
I move that the planning board determine that the proposal meets the criteria for seeker type 2 action pursuant to seeker part 617.5C16 and no further environmental review is required.
Second.
Moved and seconded for seeker. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I move that the planning board grant conditional lot line approval subject to the following: respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies. And said response to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, inclusive of but not limited to the following 1 through 9 per town code. We will extend the maximum time allowable.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
I just want to confirm with council that that is okay to add as a condition of approval, or should it be a separate resolution for the maximum time extension?
Well, if it's part of the resolution that says the planning board's going to do it, technically, it's okay. I mean, it doesn't need to necessarily be its own resolution, but it is part of the resolution that the town board is granting the extension now.
Okay.
So I think we're okay.
Just making sure Marcel has it all.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Was there a vote on that? Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, everybody, okay, sorry.
5-0.
Thank you.
So long.
All right.
All right.
Vertical bridge, AM tower replacement. Out there. See you guys come in. Quite a tall tower out there. Yes.
Carols are switching.
All right. Do you have a small, short presentation or? what?
Yes, certainly. So my name is Alec Glad from Cuddy and Fader. We are the local land use council for Vertical Bridge, the applicant. With me is Carolyn Gould from Vertical Bridge. She is the project manager on this site, and she came up from Georgia this evening to be with us. So yeah, speaking with Kristen, she asked if we had anything to show to pull it up on Zoom so you can see it on the screen here and on the feed. So she's going to try to pull up
figure that out.
some site plan drawings and other things that we have to show. Also then on Zoom, we have Josh Eblin from GPD, who is the site engineer. And then we also have Jake Wyatt and Randy Molyneux from who are iHeart engineers.
I'm not sure if Joe's, Sandy were able to join, but I know that Josh is.
So I'll just give a kind of 30,000 foot project overview while Carolyn's pulling up some drawings. So Vertical Bridge is seeking site plan amendment approval to replace one of the 2 existing AM radio towers located at the iHeart Media Facility at 20 Tucker Drive. The project site is located in the heavy industrial zoning district, and it's 9.9 acres in size. There's an office building, multiple accessory structures, and then there's a 336 foot tall guide AM tower, and then a 158 foot tall guide AM tower. And Vertical Bridge owns the towers, then leases the land right around the tower. So we're seeking to replace the 336 foot tower, which is the taller one. A recent tower inspection, which we included with the application, disclosed it has basically just reached the end of its useful life, which is understandable. It's old. It was built in 1941. So there's no changes proposed to the second tower on site, which is the shorter 158 foot one.
You know the age of that one offhand?
They were both from early 1950s, 1951, I believe. Both of them.
Yeah, 40.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess it's
Just didn't know if that was.
same age.
Yeah, they were both built together as part of the pattern.
But that one's still in good condition.
Yes.
Okay.
They've done some recent repairs to it, and they will continue to monitor it and
All right.
maintain it.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah. So the existing tower that we're replacing is a guide tower, so it's a little thinner, and then it has a bunch of wires going off it, which keep it supported. And for the replacement, we're proposing a self-supporting lattice tower. And there's 2 principal reasons for that, and they relate to environmental considerations. The first is replacing it with a lattice tower avoids impacts to the wetlands. So if we had to replace the guide anchors to current building codes, new larger anchorages would be required, and that would be constructed within the wetlands, resulting in additional disturbance for dikes, dewatering, and construction traffic. And this is a federally regulated wetland in addition to locally regulated, so that would require extensive federal permitting. So by doing the lattice tower, basically Vertical Bridge is just going to cut the guide wires and leave the existing anchors where they are with effectively no disturbance to the wetland.
So the guide wires are being removed, but just the anchors are.
Yeah, they'll just stay, and they've been a part of the wetland for the past 80 years. And then also lattice towers are more environmentally friendly for birds. So constructing the lattice tower is in accordance with 2021 guidance from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Federal Migratory Birds Act. So it's preferred than a guide tower for when you're doing a new construction. So there was a thought process that did go into the self-supporting lattice tower design. I know it's a little different, but it's essentially the same because it avoids significant impacts to federally and locally regulated wetlands, and it's a recommended best practice for birds. And we believe we've designed the facility to avoid any direct impacts to wetlands. Do we need to, someone need to accept the screen sharing so she can do
The
it?
screen is currently shared.
So I would maybe stop sharing and make sure you have open the window that you might have to select the window that the presentation's in. Sorry, I'm never the one to share, I mean, on my screen.
It sounds like an improvement.
My 12-year-old.
it's,
I know, I need my
where's the-
teenager to come help.
I mean, it's quite a rat's nest of guy wires out there right now with the old towers. Spider web, I should say.
There you go.
go.
Yeah, so this is the overall site drawing. You can see I know there's a lot going on, but you can see the tower basically in the middle there. And then to the south, well, I don't know if it's south directionally, but south on the drawings is the 148, and then there's the building for the iHeart Media Facility. Um, So we did receive Aspen's comments on the wetlands. I don't know if our wetland consultant counterpart reached out to Aspen today, but they intend to talk about the delineation, just so we do it right, do it once. So in the interest of brevity, I was going to stop there. And if I understand the board might have some questions for Vertical Bridge on the AM tower, the construction sequencing, that kind of stuff. So I was going to turn it back over to the board and its consultants, and we can go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks. Kristen?
Thank you for brevity. I appreciate it. I think the board does as well. The application is on for seeker review and amended site plan review. I think that Alec and the team has provided a decent project overview. There are a number of comments at this time. Some of the larger items have to do with the physical construction of the site, requiring some contours be placed on the mapping to understand the project proposal, how it interacts with wetlands that are existing, not only wetlands, but the wetland buffers that exist. And of course, yes, Carol Knapp is from Aspen is here tonight, so I won't steal her thunder. There are a number of comments from a planning, practical planning standpoint as well. We're trying to pave the way for a clear seeker designation and classification. Again, I'm not going to steal thunder. I don't know if you want to comment, Lisa, on that or.
At this point, we're tending toward agreeing with you that it's a type 2 action, a replacement in kind, but we just wanted to make sure we understand the full impacts of what's going on before we make that final determination. So.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll be adding the 2-foot intervals to the drawings for the contours and doing the wetland delineation on site.
And I know that that'll be an ongoing conversation as this review proceeds. So by no means are we near the end of that conversation. And to that end, that also brings into question the possible requirement of an aquatic resources permit for our town code. So again, once we have that additional information, we're able to delineate some of that wetland area and the project potential impact, we will proceed accordingly. And then there are comments. I know that the board will again probably ask about swing radius for construction and things of that nature. I know that there are a number of engineering comments. So with that, I'll just leave it at staff is recommending ask your questions this evening and have that discussion with the applicant. They will go back, resubmit, hopefully, not that it wasn't complete, but more complete in order for us to do our due diligence and defer action on the application this evening.
Great. Thanks, Kristen. Don, a few engineering issues over there.
We only had a couple. That was, we were concerned about the swing over Tucker Drive and whether there was actually going to be any disturbance to Tucker Drive. Just looking for clarification on that. And we talked of, or it's been talked about the wetlands. We weren't sure. It looked like the disturbance was going to be restored from the existing tower. So we're wondering what kind of disturbance that's going to be.
With regard to the swing radius, I believe in your site plans, and I can pull it up here, it does show there are 2 cranes that will be utilized. One of the cranes, the swing radius could potentially go out over Tucker Drive. That's if it was at its full reach. Of course, it's not going to be, so it's going to be completely encompassed within the property. So we won't be required as far as the, it won't be necessary to shut down Tucker Drive to swing pieces over. If any part of Tucker Drive would need to be closed, say to pull trucks out temporarily, that kind of thing, we would definitely coordinate in advance any necessary permits. But,
okay, so trucks would pull on site with pieces to be staged and lifted up, or,
yes.
or dismantled, vice versa.
Yes, yes, and
So-
we've actually already made contact with the police department across the street
Okay,
about
good.
the project. We've opened up those lines of
That's good.
communication.
Yeah, didn't know if trucks were going to be just pulling up on Trucker Drive and trying to lean over and do it from there. So that's good to hear.
Yes, yes.
You're off the main road. All right, go to Carol for have her way in here.
Not my expertise, but with regard to swing radius, you've got that one tower guide wire, also the smaller tower guide wire, which is basically right next to the fenced-in area, this new one, so just.
Yeah, they'll be, when they actually have the construction on-site visit, they'll go through all of that. And they've already been out there before. The engineers have all been out there and the construction managers have all been out there. And they've been discussing in detail how to work with the cranes.
Without having the detail of the 2-foot contours or any contours whatsoever, when I went out there, the wetland just does come very close to the existing fence line. So by moving this whole, this new lease area,
Mm-hmm.
25 foot further in, you definitely are encroaching in the wetland. And we weren't sure if this third leg that is probably in the wetland or very near it, is that going to be level ground, or is it just going to be an extended leg, and that's going to make a difference in how much impact there's going to be, whether there's
yeah.
fill needed and everything else. That's why.
There won't be fill needed. It'll be a concrete caisson, circular caisson leg into the ground, and it will raise.
It'll extend
above the
up
ground.
considerably higher than the other ones because it's coming from a much lower elevation.
Yeah, just depending on where the elevation hits.
Okay.
It will, and
So
then
we
can
didn't
work
know
together
that
and get the-
from looking at this. So
Yes.
if you were looking at fill, then we're extending much
Yeah,
further.
so GPD will work with you and whatever information that you need. I know that they are gathering the scope of work. And once you approve the scope of work, then the surveyors are scheduled to go out there shortly.
Okay, very good.
Gather
It's,
whatever you
it's
need.
clearly an approvable. We just need to know how much disturbance there will be. Even the temporary disturbance as far as getting into the wetland to get to the cutting off the wires.
Yes,
stuff
and
like
I had asked about that, and they are going to send someone out in probably minimal amount of impact as possible to cut them off. It'll be held by the crane, the existing tower, will be held by a crane. That's why 2 are required, and they will cut it off. And there won't be.
It's really minimal impact. It's a homogeneous Phragmites stand for the most part, but without any details. So we'll work with your person.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan there. All right, thanks. Let's go around the board for additional comments. Bob? Yeah.
Oh, Carol asked everything I was.
Of course, go with that. John?
I don't really have anything, it's already in here, but if you could provide an image of the same or similar ladder structure in your application, I think that would be helpful for me.
Yeah, we have a sim that we can pull up. And we'll of course submit it with the next materials.
All right. Rocco?
One quick thing, I think it's quick. If I'm not mistaken, you stated that where the guy wires are currently anchored, that is leased land, and it's also wetlands.
Yes.
Okay, so, and the plan is to, once the wires are cut, you're going to leave the anchors there. Is that, who owns that land, and is there any liability to the owner if that remains there at some point, if they have to be removed because of some regulation, who will be responsible for that?
Yeah, so I believe, I don't know the legal entity name, but I think it's someone affiliated with iHeartMedia. But as far as your question about legal liability for leaving it there, I'm not sure. Don't know if Lisa has any input, but I can make a note of it to try to.
There's an owner.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Somebody
yes.
owns the wetlands because it's leased land. At some point, due to either a regulation change or something, they may be required to remove the anchors. Is that a possibility, Lisa? I mean, I'm asking one lawyer and I'll ask another lawyer. I mean, it's just, I'm thinking
I
ahead.
asked Carol, so,
From a regulatory point of view, it's very doubtful that anything would ever happen to those. I mean, basically just concrete bollards under the surface, probably 3 feet under the surface. They would have to go through to get a permit to do something within the wetlands. It's highly unlikely. So
Right,
it's just
not that they would do something within the wetlands, but if the owner might be required to remediate the conditions there, who'll be responsible for that?
So
That's my
arguably,
question.
so it's more likely that there would be, it's moving them or doing anything to them is probably, it's more disturbance than actually leaving them there. Because if you leave them there, the world will
Well,
grow
that
up around
much
them.
I
So
understand.
if there were to be some liability, absent an agreement between the lessee and the landowner, it would probably fall under to the landowner if they
Right,
were
that's
not
what I'm
there.
saying.
But
Which is iHeart in this case.
right, it's an affiliated company and
Okay, so you're leasing from an affiliated iHeart
Yes.
company? Yeah. Okay.
so, I mean, and that's really for planning board purposes, it's a matter between private entities.
Okay.
If they
I
want
wasn't
to,
aware of that because it said it was leased from a private owner. So, okay, so that clarifies it.
so as long as I talked, I have two things quickly. I assume you saw that it was local concern from the county, but I didn't know.
That came in, yeah, that did not get forwarded, I don't think.
Right, so it's a matter of local concern, so that's one good thing.
Great.
And then in the engineer's comments, there was a question as to Town Code Section 21063B and a suggestion that they might need a waiver for height and separation distance as part of the special use permit regulations. But because we're probably in all likelihood treating this as a replacement in kind, it's not going to be something that requires a waiver of those conditions because it's pre-existing and it existed long before the code did. So in all likelihood, that's not going to be an issue. So we can take that one off the table.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Lisa. All right, Nicole, do you have anything?
I was just wondering if you're adding any lighting.
Just the FAA lighting, no additional lighting, just what's required.
Yeah, and I want to note too, the new tower isn't going to need the red and white striping, from what I understand, that exists. So we have a sim up on the screen of the lattice tower, so it's just going to be galvanized steel.
Yeah, that's our intent. That's what's been requested of that.
Okay, I see it now.
If the FAA requires something else, but that's typically what, without the lighting that's provided, they don't require the red and white stripe.
Yeah, that was my question, is that has the FAA weighed in on this? Sounds like we got it covered.
Yes.
And I talked about where the crane picks us up pieces, and I think that's it.
I move that the planning board defer action and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, included but not limited to the following 1 through 9.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Third, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, thanks. You got our comments.
Thank you very much.
We understand more about it now, so get back to Chris and everything, the next to middle. First student, Fitchett Way is the next.
Hello, I'm Michelle Zerkis from Berger Engineering. We're on Zoom.
Yep, hi, Michelle.
Hi, and with me is Joe Berger and Michael Klein, the applicant,
Right.
and Monica Mangieri, who's the location site manager.
Right, yeah, you've been here before with some things. So what's changed? What are you coming forward with today?
Well, as you know, that the site has not changed because this project's not actually doing anything. So I did add the truck turning plan, which was requested when we met with the staff. And we've added some other items to the plans, which were requested just to add more to the plans. As before, there's no expansion proposed. It's going to be the same use, the same everything. So it's not really a site plan, it is a memorialization of the existing. The question with regard to the environmental, those were some diesel fuel spills and oil spills, some small ones that were cleaned up and have been closed by the DEC. And at this point, the lawsuit that was brought by the neighbor has been dropped by the neighbor, and that the agreements that were proposed are confidential. So what we would like would be for the planning board to declare its intent to be lead agency so we can move on with this project.
All right, thanks. Eric did the write-up here.
Yeah.
Mike?
So you have Eric's staff report. As Michelle said, this was last before us in December of 2020. You know, a lot of the items that were cleaned up on the plan set relate to sort of existing conditions. There are still a number of comments that remain to be addressed. I do think one of the fundamental problems right now is that, you know, to hear Michelle talk about the project, I think there's more that needs to happen than just documenting what's there. The operation is currently operating illegally. It does not have a site plan or special use permit. And that's what they're requesting here. And so you know, there are potentially things that the applicant could do to make the site work better, both functionally. It's a difficult site, but work better, and also, you know, from the standpoint of the neighbors. And I think that's captured in Eric's report. You know, ultimately, at some point or another, the applicant will have to tell us what those things are going to be or not, and then the board would have to decide whether or not to grant the special use permit and the site plan or not. I did want to point out, it just came in today, a couple of comments that you hopefully received. There was a letter from Scenic Hudson, from Jeff Anzavino, reacting, I believe, to some public, you know, complaints that they've received, and I think asking for some of what I just described, which was, you know, ideas about how to improve the site. And then also from the neighbors, I believe, at 16 Fitchett Way, Tatiana and Oleg, and I won't butcher their last name. So that's where we're at. We do have you know, since the last time, we know that there would be variances that are necessary. So we certainly could adopt the lead agency intent resolution, and that's what's recommended here. Other than that, there's a whole long list of comments, and we would recommend deferring further action on that, on the remainder of the application.
All right, thanks, Mike. There's definitely a lot of stuff going on in that area. Don, any comments from you?
We still have a number of comments that we've asked a couple of times, but probably the most notable one is still to clarify who owns the driveway, or who has rights over the driveway to get into the site. The rest of them, I think, will eventually get taken care of.
You gotta make sure there's a clear survey and where the property lines are, and et cetera. Between the houses, the residential especially, and the rest of the site.
Right.
All right.
Carol, I don't recall, did you review this one too? At one point?
I have not reviewed this one, but I've been on this, actually, no, I did. But I've been on the site several times in the past, and one of the concerns was the unidentified piping.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yes,
There was a
right.
pipe going down to the creek.
Excuse me, I could not hear Carol.
There was remember last time you were here, we're asking you to see if you could identify a pipe. We weren't sure what it was going down towards the creek, I believe. So I'm not sure if that was done or not.
Most of those pipes were put in way back when it was a farm, so like, without digging up the whole site and disturbing the whole site, I'm not sure how we could ever figure out what they are.
Or if there's anything.
So how much disturbance?
This was a pipe, a 6-inch PVC pipe that's in some cases above ground. And something is clearly running through it. It's right around the wetland boundary.
An above ground 6-inch PVC. We'll maybe take another look at that, see if we can identify it. if it's partially above ground, as Carol saw on her visit. Let's see. Let's go around the board for comments, I guess. Ben, anything?
I don't think there's enough information here to make any kind of a decision. There's too many things open-ended. From what we got today from the scenic Hudson, from the neighbors, a lot of work has to be done before we could take any action on this application, my opinion.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ben. I don't know where to start asking questions at this point. A lot of them.
All right. Joan?
I agree with Bob and Ben.
You got it. Rocco,
Right, I agree, and it's, and there's a lot of questions that are laid out here by Eric that need to be answered, and we keep asking, so hopefully we'll get answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and there's a lot of things here that aren't, like you have buildings that have no building permits, things like that. And we do have some information here about where the property lines are, but I think that we need to talk about whether or not we actually need to get it staked so that we can visually see where the property lines are. And someone mentioned before, we need to figure out exactly where, who owns those driveways, does an easement need to be done? There's just so many questions that are unanswered, so.
all right, thanks. Yeah, clear survey, as we discussed with Don, and you alluded to here. I'm concerned that there's, that for years the neighbors are getting these buses passing by their house, and there's literally no screening at all between all the buses exiting the house and these residential houses. So I think you need to look into something, whether you do some plantings or a fence or whatever it has to be to give them a little more screening, shelter.
And there's no reason for these buses to be idling
Right.
in the summertime. We could understand if it was the dead of winter, but
Well, I mean, they could be idling if they want to idle, but we'd rather they idle in a different, you got acres of land there to not have the buses idling right next to the neighbor's house. So if you can figure out a way to route the buses and through the property, and park them in a place where they're going to idle elsewhere as they warm up, and then head out as they go past the house. But we've seen instances of them, just sitting there waking up the neighbors in the early morning. So.
And I've been to the
so I think
site several times, and to go to First Student for deliveries, and there's no clear way of which way to go or whose property you're on, or I'm sure, and I know there's buried tanks there, and looks like it could be contaminated soil too. I don't know.
I mean, it was all one big farm thing at one time, and now it's kind of divided up in different uses. So we got to try to figure out how to screen those uses from each other. And I'm concerned about you got to look at some of the potholes in the driveway as well. You got to make sure it's good for your buses, I guess. But anything that's shared with the neighbors has to be kept in good condition, which I believe it was when last time I was out there. And I'm glad you mentioned the spills have been cleaned up. That's good to know.
So on that front, Michelle, can you provide us with the closure letters for any of the open spills? And if there was any other documentation on that we should have, that would be great.
I can provide you with all the DEC closure.
Thank you.
And I think one of the, someone on the discussion tonight mentioned there's an EAF issue that I think you said was covered in there, but.
I'm not, I'm going to look at that,
We'll
but
take a
yes,
look
there was a
at that.
public comment about the EAF.
Okay. So we'll look at that. And so that's my main thing, is protecting the residents as much as possible, with whether it's landscape screening or fence, or, they got noise, light, and fumes to worry about. So we gotta try to keep those uses separate a little bit more. And there's definitely, I don't know if you can, we talked about also last time that, there's an old house falling apart on the north end of the parcel there. I don't know if that, who owns that. And some other things, and just, the old buildings are just falling apart in there. I don't know if that's first student's responsibility or whoever.
Mr. Chairman, one thing I would just like to add, I noted in the beginning that the last time we saw this application was in December of last year, and it's now August of 2021. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but I want to point out that the zoning administrator has refrained from taking further enforcement action. And so I don't want this to just sort of linger for months and months and months, because I believe we need to either make the improvements that are necessary to get to a site plan and special use permit, or not. And so, I'd like to make sure that we get those, keep this thing moving, hopefully in a positive direction. And that's just.
Yeah, Mike, Joe Berger here. To respond to that, the delay between then and now was mainly due to the legal action that was being pursued. Now that the action has been resolved and stopped, we're going to be moving more aggressively to resolve all the issues. But the mainstay was because of that action. So it wasn't any other reason. So now that we have the legal part behind us, we'll be meeting with you, and we'll probably request a staff meeting right after this so we can start addressing all these concerns aggressively. Okay?
That'd be great. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joe. That's good to know.
I just want.
All right.
I move the planning board declare its intent to be the lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action, and authorize the planning department circulation of a notice of said intent, a copy of the EAF, and a copy of the application to all involved agencies and identified interested agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded for lead agency. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? No. Motion passes 6-0.
I move the planning board defer action on this application pending establishment of the lead agency, and direct the applicant to respond to comments of the planning board and those for said town departments and agencies. Said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness, included of but not limited to the following 1 through 8.
Should you add the 9 with the EAF or not?
Yeah, 9, investigate that EAF comment from the public.
Okay, and 9 to investigate EAF comment.
Second.
Seconded, moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Joe. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Neshawat subdivision for Wiltsey Lot 53, formerly known as.
Makes no difference.
Whichever.
Yeah, you might need both anyway,
Might
actually.
need to set it across both. That works. That's fine. Thanks for your patience. It's been a long night here. Lot of projects.
Start by introducing myself.
Yep.
Hello, I'm Ileana Tucker from M. Gillespie and Associates, and I'm speaking on behalf of our client, JJ Equity Holdings.
All right. So what is this about? Just
So I believe the last meeting we had was in May. This is a 2-lot subdivision on a 1.8 acre lot in the R20 zone. I think the biggest concern was the steep slopes in the
Yes.
beginning of the parcel. Ultimately, the client preferred two separate lots, two separate driveways, mainly because of possible issues in the future with easements and conflicts between the two owners of the lots.
Okay,
But yeah.
all right.
No,
What'd you
just,
say?
you have Eric's staff report. This is on for pre-application discussion. We talked about seeker and preliminary minor subdivision review. At this point, we think the planning board should assume the lead agency responsibility, but defer action on the subdivision. Number of comments that, related to the driveways and to the steep slopes are in the report. Don, I know, probably has some thoughts about the driveway that he wants to share. So, that's really where we're coming from at this point.
All right, Don, fire away.
The only thing on the driveway is the plan and profile, and plan and profile appeared differently. We'd like to see a sort of a standing area at the bottom and a standing area at the top, which there was one at the top, but not at the bottom, or that I shouldn't say there wasn't one. We couldn't verify that there was one. So that's probably the biggest thing here for us.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to be steep right up to the house or something.
The staff report, I did note, Eric mentioned that, the planning board may want to weigh in on whether they want to see a layout with a common driveway, and what that would look like. But I don't know how, she did explain the reason why the two driveways were desired. So just want to mention that too.
Yeah, we can definitely offer an alternate.
What's that?
So you guys can see it. We can offer an alternate view. But at the end,
I mean, you think it's completely off the table in terms of the applicant, or?
yes.
You
Yeah.
do? Well,
I mean, he's open to obviously your opinions, but I think ultimately he wants the two separate driveways.
And what is the width of the two separate driveways?
As of right now, I believe they are 12 feet each.
12 feet.
Yeah.
It is tough to share a driveway, I'll admit.
Yeah, and I believe all the surrounding parcels have.
Who shovels it and who whatever.
yeah, no, absolutely, no, right, it does
We'll
complicate.
go
things.
around for the board for comments. Joan, anything?
No, I don't have any comments.
Rocco?
Nothing at this time.
Nicole?
Not really. I was just wondering about the driveway width.
And Ben? Bob? Yeah, I mean, that's I can see that, shared driveways came about as people built houses, subdivided lots more than, and these days it's tough to share, it feels like.
I think it's the slope, right? We were
But the
worried
slope
about
is-
the slope, and that's why we were saying the shared driveway.
You want to, I've seen my sister's house, actually, she wanted to buy one, and the driveway was steep right up to the garage. She cannot even park the garage on a level in front of the garage, so it's good to have that place that's level up in front of the garage to stop and get out, because otherwise your door closes on you. Basic things like that. So make sure that's, and work with Don to get that stuff to him, so you can see the proper profile. That's all I have right now.
Okay. I move the planning board determined that no other involved agencies have been identified for seeker review of the proposed project as an unlisted action, and therefore no lead agency circulation is required.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
I move the planning board defer further action on this application, determine it is incomplete, and direct the applicant to respond in writing to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies, included but not limited to the following 1 through 9.
Second.
Moved and seconded, called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too. Next up, Wiltsey Lot 19 subdivision. Who's on for that? Amy, I assume?
Hi.
I see you hanging in there.
Late night, huh?
We'll drop off. Not one of our worst, but it's a long one.
So I'm representing Wiltsey for Day and Stokosa. It's a 4-lot subdivision on Oldfield Road and Wiltsey Lane in town of Poughkeepsie. And it's going to require a number of easements to provide sewer and water services to 4 of the houses. There's a septic system in one spot that's going to be abandoned and will have to be added into the sewer district.
Any comments on this, Mike?
No, not, again, you have Eric's staff reports. There's a pre-application discussion. We recommend that the board adopt the seeker lead agency intent resolution and defer action with response to the comments from, there's quite a few of them. I think some of the trickier things here are going to be related to the sewer connection and making sure that, that maybe Don, you want to talk a little bit more about that, but otherwise it seems pretty straightforward. They certainly have plenty of acreage here, so the 4 lots is not, it's not an issue really. It seems to fit otherwise. So.
All right, thanks. Don? Again.
I'll talk a little bit more about it, but I'll make it short. Basically, they're not part of this, lot 19 was not part of the sewer district, so they'll have to get a tenancy agreement, or, well, I'm assuming they won't want to make the district any bigger, but probably need a sewer tenancy agreement, and we have a lot of other comments, but I'm sure they'll get handled.
And Franco is probably okay with the sewer, the way they're routing it.
Yep.
All right. Any site distance issues that you know of?
I believe so.
I don't think, that's pretty straight, actually.
No, we had a comment from the highway superintendent on that. Was that for the 53? I forget.
Yeah, I might have been mixing up with my head too. That was more vertical on that one.
But he was okay with it, for the record.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That's all I
I
remember.
was just looking it up.
Good here. Yes, awaiting street opening.
All right. The only thing is you're gonna have to probably move some of those cows out of the field there. You gotta build a house there.
Are you decorated for fall already? Oh.
I know.
Yeah, I'm at a friend's house actually, and yes, they are decorated for fall.
It's only August, come on. All right, let's see if anyone has comments. Joan?
No, I don't have any comments.
Rocco?
Nothing, no.
Nicole?
My only comment was actually from the fire department that they're looking for the driveways to comply with the section 511.2 of the fire code of New York State. That was my only comment.
Yeah, some of them. The driveway to the main house is longer.
Yeah, it just
They
needs
so they
to,
need to turn around it probably.
yeah,
or
it
something.
needs to have the right width so that an emergency vehicle could turn around if need be.
Yep.
That's all, so.
And Ben, anything?
No.
And Bob? Right, I'm good too, other than moving the cows. I think you're good to go here.
Okay, I move that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency to coordinate the environmental review of the proposed project as an unlisted action and authorize the planning department circulation after receipt of a corrected EAF and a notice of said intent, copy of the EAF and a copy of the application to all involved agencies and identified interested agencies.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Move that the planning board defer further action on this application pending establishment of a lead agency and subject to the following. Respond to comments of the planning board and those received from town departments and agencies. Said responses to be reviewed by the planning department as to adequacy and completeness included but not limited to the following 1 through 11.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Called to question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Andy,
night.
for being in there. Take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, we've got. Now we have a comprehensive plan.
Yes, the proposed comprehensive plan update. The On August 4th, the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, which Carl was a member of, Kristen and I were both staff to, the committee formally transmitted its final draft of the comprehensive plan update to the town board. The town board adopted a resolution which set a public hearing for September 1st. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And also referred the plan to the planning board for recommendation. I gave you a copy of really just the main section of the plan, but on the website, you could also find the appendices, which includes all the existing conditions reports and the public meeting notes and so on.
All the maps. And
All the maps. There's also a long form EAF that's on there. So, you know, there's additional supporting material if you're interested. You know,
Well, we're interested. The planning board follows the master plan.
yes, right, right. So you should be interested. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, wanted to point out that the committee worked for 3 years on this project. They held 32 regular meetings, pretty much every month. They hosted 5 public workshops, did a community survey, ultimately did a public hearing, and then before forwarding the document on to the town board, we were assisted in the process by Nelson Pope and Voorhees, which was our consultant team, paid for by a couple of grants that we were able to get from New York State for that work. So a lot of work has gone into it. We're obviously eager to see the plan be adopted. That said, I did try to get a little sense from the supervisor as far as, you know, what they think the schedule would be, because I realize you've only had this now for, you know, a few days, and less than a week. So, you know, the sense I got was that if we wanted to hold off and make the recommendation in September, that would be fine. You know, they would probably like to get this thing adopted in the fall. That's clearly where they're headed, but they certainly would want to get your thoughts if you have them. So I would suggest, rather than making the recommendation tonight, that we wait and do that in September. And if you have any questions as you read the document, contact Kristen or myself, and we can maybe help you out with that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought too. It's a lot of content to read in 6 days, along with all our other plans this week. So it gives you another month and change to review all the stuff on the website as well, whatever you want to look at. Because if we make a recommendation, I think we should make a recommendation with comments from the board to say, we recommend this to the board, but we think this should be changed or edited or whatever.
Yeah, we're hoping you don't want to make too many changes, but we hope you have, you know.
But we need some red lines or a little red lines.
So to that extent, if the board, I don't know if you have individual comments, if you want to send them maybe individually to Mike, and then he can collect them or something, so we can distribute them with the packets for the next meeting, because I don't think you want to sit here and go through everybody's comments at the next meeting.
Yes,
That's actually a good idea. And maybe we'll follow up. I'll follow up with a date to give everyone a deadline, because I know deadlines are useful.
Yes.
What if we don't have any comments?
If you don't have any comments, that's fine. Or if you really
No
like
comment
what
is a
you
comment.
read, or you support something strongly in the plan, I think that would be great too.
Okay.
Yeah.
The town board would very much like to hear that, I'm sure.
Right. And no comment is a fine comment, or great job is also, I'm sure, appreciated.
Yeah.
So,
The county planning board had actually reviewed this informally when the committee finished its draft, and committee did take a lot of those comments into consideration and made some changes based on that. And so they are also looking at it again now formally as a referral, but they have the advantage of having read the whole thing once and having provided all those comments. So I think, yeah, I'll follow up with an email, and we'll do it. We'll do that.
All right, sounds good, Mike. And put a deadline in there that's comfortable for you to collate it in time for distribution for the next packet.
Okay.
Got plenty of time.
So we got about a month to look it over. So about a month goes by quickly. So keep that in mind as well.
All right.
You can choose a chapter per night or whatever.
Give them homework.
Give them homework. All right. Let's move on to the last item today then, is just a time extension for Mercury Grand Hotel renovation.
Yes. Yeah, that one's wrapping up. I know Eric's been in touch with the engineer, and we're hoping to get the final plan in for signature very soon, but we do want to do this.
All right, I move that the planning board grant a 90-day time extension of conditional amended site plan approval from September 17th, 2021 forward to December 16th, 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded, call to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No one's opposed.
So
6 to
before
0.
we make the famous motion to end the meeting, Mike and I will preface this by saying I will take 3 minutes now, so you don't have 20 or 30 minutes at the next another meeting. But we wanted to briefly bring up, there's been a request for a re-roof at 9 Barnes Drive, which is the property that's adjacent to the Hudson Valley Animal Rescue. And by code, they are supposed to come here for an architectural review. What they want to do is put on a peaked roof because it's about $30,000 to $40,000 cheaper than replacing the flat roof, which they got price estimates to be $100,000. What we'd like is the planning board just to authorize staff to allow that rather than making them do a formal architectural review submission to the board. So I'd like a motion for that.
That's fine.
Yes, I mean, it's changing a flat roof to a peaked roof, so I thought the board might appreciate that.
Have the existing and the proposed, but it's really not very surprising. It's flat roof to a peaked roof, and it looks better.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion from Carl. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Okay,
Motion
thank you,
passes
guys.
6 to 0.
All right, we'll do
Thanks.
that. That sounds good.
I'm trying.
Any other motions?
I move that we terminate this evening's meeting.
Second. Moved and seconded, called to question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 6 to 0. Believe it or not. Signing off, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, George, for being there right to the end. Or maybe he's not.